kid with the scarf on his head is totally freaking out as he asks. He calls her out for being so aggressive, and even though he apologizes for the trap, Asuda's got a sword pointed right at him as he speaks. He just showed up and is honestly just trying to figure out where he even is. They finally recognize where they are. Wondon says this is the forest at the base of Mount Morga, a jungle territory ruled by the local boss, Lord Genos. He thinks the whole thing is super weird and asks her if she's ever heard of Chiba back in Japan. He just realized that he wasn't actually born in this place. He realizes the clothes he found were actually. They have this super weird scent that's like a crazy mix of fruit, flowers, incense, and even meat. Now he's starving and feels like he finally has the green light to go wild. Suddenly his stomach lets out a massive growl. She's still pointing her sword at him, totally confused as she asks what he's actually planning to do. Asuda's stomach growls again, and when Afa asks if he's just messing with her, he explains that she smells amazing because he's totally starving. The kid is totally starving and tries to apologize, swearing he never meant to steal anything. Eiffel's giving off a super weird energy while pointing his sword, and he looks totally dangerous. Masuda tries to say he's sorry, but his stomach is growling so loud he's starting to think this is how his second life finally ends. The sword just slips and clatters right onto the ground. The IFO starts shaking like crazy, making the kid wonder if she's actually feeling sick. Suddenly, the warning sirens start screaming, and then he just started cracking up like crazy. It's totally shook the second it realizes what she's actually done. She's trying so hard not to crack up, but then the warrior gets dead serious and says the Sudome has to be taken out. When he asks why, Ifa tells him she's never been this nervous in her entire life, and that's exactly why she has to take him out. The guy tries to apologize for hurting her pride, saying he's totally lost and in a huge mess. Onan realizes he's not from the Stone Capital or the Western Kingdom, so she tells him to come home and talk or she'll have to take him out. He's asking if it's even a good idea to invite some random stranger. The woman warns him that if he doesn't get a fire going, he's totally dead. The guy starts telling me his name, but Ifa is totally struggling to even say his own name. So he tells her to just call him a suitor. She tells him to lean on her shoulder so they can get moving way faster. He takes the deal the second that arm wraps around his shoulder. He tries to get around her but ends up catching a nasty elbow. She tells him to just put his hand on her shoulder and asks if he's seriously hiding a sword in his chest. Asuda tells her she can totally relax since he isn't planning on doing a single thing. She tells him to go ahead and try something, but her sword is definitely gonna be faster. As they keep moving, Ife warns that they've wasted way too much time and a Jiba is totally gonna jump them tonight. The kid is totally lost and asks what the deal is with the Jiba. She describes exactly what the Borza Jiba looks like and asks if he's seen it, and when he says yes, it turns out that's the whole reason he fell right into the trap. He realizes his coat is actually made from that animal's skin, and Eiffel explains her tribe hunts them for food and sells the rest. We're talking thick monster skin and massive horns. She says the Stone City people actually look down on the forest folk just because of what they eat. He asks why, and she tells him the meat is super tough and stinks, and anyone who eats it ends up smelling just like it. But Asuda's over here saying it smells totally delicious. And since he's got a crazy good nose for this kind of stuff, he knows for a fact that the Jiba is gonna taste incredible. She just says the meat isn't anything special, but it's not like it's gross or anything. He thinks this is the ultimate test to see what a real cook is made of. The village finally comes into view, and the lady tells everyone they've officially made it. Asuda asks how many people live there, and she explains that the village stretches from north to south with 500 people at most. She also mentions that just traveling from one city to the next takes at least half a day. Suddenly, this guy pops up out of nowhere and starts asking questions. And check out the super moody kid that's tagging along with her. She tells him to back off because this has nothing to do with him. But he's saying the Sun family are basically the ones ruling over everything, and she asks about his weird clothes and where he's from, but then she says she couldn't care less about the Sun family. She calls him a total wreck and tells him to get out of her way. The guy is super annoyed and tells her to say that again, but she just dares him to fight her or get lost. She just breezes right past the guy while he's screaming at her to watch out. She's hunting down gibbous monsters just to make sure she doesn't lose her head one day. Asuda knows he's not one to talk, but he tells her she should at least try to play nice with the neighbors. She explains that the night her dad passed away, a guy broke into her house and tried to attack her, so she fought back by landing a bunch of low blows. She explains that her family's hair totally ruined her reputation, so she asks her suitor if she should even care about a guy like that, and even though the boy tells her to just punch. Her stomach growls again and she's totally embarrassed, asking if he's messing with her on purpose, so he tells her she can just laugh while she snaps at him to shut up. They finally made it to Afa's tiny little place. Then the kid actually asks if he should take his shoes off. She's totally annoyed, but since his stomach is growling so loud, she says she'll finally whip him up some food. He asks her if she's living all by herself or if she has any family staying with her. She reminds him that her dad passed away and that she actually lost her mom a long time ago too. They head inside and she tells him to just sit tight, but once Ifa ditches her fur coat, that smell of meat gets way more intense. His stomach was growling like crazy, and she told him to hand over his sword because you're supposed to leave your weapons at the door. The kid stops right there because he's starting to have second thoughts. The Santo Cumafe is literally the only thing he has left in this entire world. He's got no other choice, so he hands it over and tells her she better keep it safe. She says she's totally got this and swears she isn't a total klutz. He's not acting like a victim, he's just wondering if they messed up and if that power source is actually a keepsake from his dad. And that suit proves it, she's definitely the one. He says that if you treat your family like trash, you're basically dead to the forest people. He's holding the pod when a wound suddenly shows up, and Asuna walks over to get a closer look. Iface figures the guy is starving and tells him he'll be ready in just a second. But the guy tells them he's actually super into the local food, since it's literally his job. She gets busy in the kitchen while the boy just stares, totally hooked on every move she makes. He asks if that price is actually for 2 people. And you've gotta see if there's anything actually special about this Cuba meat. Effort is just trying to figure out what the heck he's even talking about. He even straight up says it. He's got zero clue what's going on, just staring blankly at the F. He's happily digging into his food while chilling with the lady. He gets super annoyed and snaps, asking what's so funny, so the guy tries to apologize by saying he was just thinking about how good the food looks. Ifa just shrugs and says it's nothing special. He lets them know it's gonna take a hot minute before he's actually ready to go. And now she's finally ready to hear his side of the story. He pulls off his scarf and sits down, thinking back on the 17 years he's been alive. He says he thought he was dead for sure, but then he just woke up in that spot and wondered if he'd been dragged to a different country. The second he thought that, he realized everything was getting seriously weird. He asks her how they're speaking Japanese when she doesn't even know Japan exists. Then he asks her to tell him where they actually are. Eiffel explains that the forest camp and Stone City are part of the Western Jungle Kingdom, where the capital is totally crowded. She says everyone there worships the Western Jungle God, and that the entire continent of Musikoran is divided into 4 huge kingdoms and 4 gods. To her, anyone who doesn't have a blessing from one of these gods is basically just a wild animal. She got super worried and asked the guy how he could possibly not know that. Asura has no clue, and the kid is totally stuck thinking about that mystery boar and all the weird stuff that isn't in any of his books. He finally realizes that he totally doesn't belong in this world. The boy asks I-5 if she's ever met anyone like him before, and she straight up tells him no. He's convinced he's stuck in another world, losing his chance to see his dad, Riene, or even finish delivering that knife. He's stressing about how long it'll take to get back home, wondering if he just hit his head so hard that he's imagining this entire thing. Afa touches him and he jumps, totally snapping out of his deep thoughts. She gets up and heads over to the fire, saying the meat looks like it's finally done. He looks like a massive pot of stew and is totally losing his mind over how much is there. But he still asks her if she actually believes his story. She says she could tell just by looking into his eyes that he was being totally for real. So now she's convinced he's totally lost his mind. I chopped up those onions, fried them to perfection, and tossed them right into the food. The boy watches the foam start to pile up, and feeling a little down, he thanks her for actually trusting him. She thinks it's super weird that he actually loves being called a total psycho. Asuda's just glad she actually believed him, even if she thinks he's totally losing it. Ifa asks what he's gonna do next, and he tells her he's trying to find a way back to his own world. The kid admits he's totally lost and has no clue how to get back home. He says he has no clue how he even got to this world, so if he's just getting in her way, he'll vanish right now. He even offers to go camp. Jiba is gonna turn him into a pile of bones by tomorrow, and since Diz's son saw Ifer with him, she says this whole mess is on her. He's got to stick right by her side until he finally figures out how this world and the gods work. She tells him that once he understands, he can end things however he wants, so he thanks her with a formal Japanese bow that just leaves her looking totally confused. Asuda thinks back to how she was the first person he met and the one who let him stay, and he's feeling super happy about it. He's totally hyped that the food is finally ready, but then This situation works out perfectly for both of them. Zuda thanks her and tells her it smells amazing. The kid peeks into the stew and sees it's loaded with meat, onions, and potatoes. You grab a piece of meat with your chopsticks, take a bite, and find out it's actually incredible. The taste hits it and it lets out a massive scream. And it honestly just feels super gross. We flash back to Asuda picking herbs when his dad tells him to help sort some boar meat, but as Asuda stares at it with a weird look, his dad asks him what's up. He's straight up admitting that he's terrified. The kid is super hyped because he actually pulled off making that boar and daikon dish. He asks his dad what's up with the meat, and the man explains it has to sit and age for a few days first. He finally takes a bite of the stew and says it tastes amazing. It doesn't even smell bad, and the guy says the meat has absolutely zero fat on it. Asura is chatting with this girl when she mentions she's craving some meat and daikon, so he promises to bring it next time, but he gets all bummed out saying how sad. Or maybe I'll just totally mess it all up while he's fast asleep. He screams at him to wake up and lands a massive punch right on his face. And he promised he wasn't just gonna be a moocher looking for a free meal. They're the one who hooks him up with dried Jiba meat for breakfast. He tells them they're hitting the road the second he's finished. He's struggling to choke down the meat because the smell is totally gross, and he's convinced they didn't drain the blood right. He's just trying to eat, but someone is watching him with a total death stare. The kid can't stop thinking about that meat he ate yesterday. It's super tough and way too sticky with all that fat, and even the onions feel exactly like the ones from shakiaki. The potatoes basically tasted like watery flour mixed with a punch of black pepper. You take a bite and realize the food actually tastes and smells incredible this time. Ifa's getting super annoyed and asks if he's finally done, while the guys are totally struggling to choke down that meat. But he's already been eaten, so she says they're gonna gather pico leaves and wood until sunset, while the boy just asks what happened to his Santoka knife. They rush over to the storage building to grab the knife. Suda suddenly catches a whiff of some seriously amazing spices. He snatches up a super unique find. Eiffel grabs the knife and shouts that they need to get moving because they've wasted way too much time already. She asks why he's staring at the storage, and he reveals that his dad was actually a cook. He realizes this girl honestly couldn't care less about how her food tastes. To say thanks for letting him crash, Asuda offers to whip up a big dinner for everyone. Eifer thinks he's a total moron and asks if he's for real, since even a little kid knows how to cook. The kid tries to defend himself, saying the food here is totally different from the stuff back home. She's like, hold up, that literally makes zero sense. But he's super determined and just asks her to try his recipe, saying it might help her out even just a little bit. She doesn't have much to say, so she just nods and starts spilling everything, letting him do whatever he wants. He's honestly just hyped that he can at least handle the cooking for now. That other face says the kid is talking way too big and he's gonna pay for acting like such a brat. He's totally panicking as he rushes right up to her side. He asks what she even means by that as they keep moving. It's sprinting through the woods, and the second it spots someone. A few leaves drifted by, but then the lady spoke up. They look exactly the same, but you'll actually find pico leaves growing right along the riverbank. The boy asks if that dried leaf is where the peppery kick comes from, and she tells him it's actually how she keeps meat fresh for a whole month. He tries to grab some leaves, but Ifis stops him right in his tracks. She warns him to keep his hands off, because stealing from Morgan Mountain is a massive taboo. He explains that picking leaves the Jibas won't eat is strictly forbidden, since the Western Jungle Kingdom owns this entire mountain and forest. Eiffel reveals that the Morian people are actually refugees who fled from the Southern Kingdom. They're actually allowed to hunt Jibas, which is exactly why everyone calls them Jiba eaters. That's when Asuna realizes the only things they can actually eat are gross pests. IFA warns them that if they break any rules, their punishment is literally having their skin peeled off. They finally hit the river, and the boys are ready for action. The plants go totally crazy the second that woman shows up. She tosses her coat aside and sheds every last ounce of weight. She's actually gonna be the first one to ever pull this off. She says her whole body totally reeks of nasty Jiba fat. She chucks her jacket right at the guy while he's standing there totally blushing. She's standing there with absolutely nothing on, and Iface warns that it's a total taboo to at a single girl while she's got absolutely nothing on. Stunned, the kid asks if that means it's actually okay to check her out even if she's married. Ifrit tells him to keep guard while she takes a bath, but she warns him he better not look her way. The kid is totally convinced he'll never reach the top while lugging around that heavy curse. And massive tears just started pouring out of his eyes. The girl screams at the top of her lungs, begging to be swapped in. He's totally freaked out and sprints straight to her side. He's asking what the heck happened and warns them that if that's the case, things are about to get crazy. At this point, there's just no way you can look away. He loses sight of the girl and yells out a warning, asking if she's drowning. He tells her he's jumping right in after her. I burst through the surface and scream for him to finally end the match. This giant python is looking absolutely massive. To help you out, the snake wraps its tail right around. He forced his arm to move, ignoring the crazy pain. He lunges straight for Ifile, ripping right through the beast to reach his target. He heads for the shore and yells at her to brace herself for the crash. He puts his back into it and yanks that giant python back, which finally forces it to let the girl go. Suda grabs her and pulls her straight out of the water. He pulls her out of the water and onto the beach, worried sick that Ifa might have actually broken a bone. Meanwhile, that massive python started sliding across the ground, right back down into the deep, dark water. He asks if she's doing okay, and she tells him she just swallowed a little bit of water. The second it gets all flustered, it just starts staring at the part that's wide open. He's totally frozen and can't look away, honestly terrified of what she might do next. The kid totally freaks out and slams his hands over his eyes. He waves his hands around and swears he didn't see a single thing. Suddenly, everything goes pitch black, and then he hears Ifa's voice calling out. She shouts to see if he's still breathing and tells him to quit hiding and show himself. A dead Jiba is lying right there, and the girl with the knife warns that the beast snuck up behind him, so you can never let your guard down. He keeps his eyes locked on her and agrees, but he's only doing it for her. Face says that normally, he'd get his eyes ripped right out just for looking at a maiden. Since he literally saved her life, she decides to let it slide and actually thanks him. He also makes sure to thank her for saving his life and everything she did. Then he asks what they're actually gonna do with the beast. She pulls out her knife and says she's gotta butcher the thing. He says they should just let all that blood drain right out of the body. She's totally confused, so Asu tells her the meat smells so gross because of that weird liquid inside. But for real, all they're after right now is that leg. The kid is straight up asking for the knife. He lands a nasty cut right next to the heart. Suddenly, all that liquid starts pouring out. He's totally hyped and starts celebrating his big win. Ifai sounds totally bored as he says they only need the back legs, teeth, and tusks, but the boy thinks leaving the rest behind is a huge waste. Asura breaks it down and says his whole path is about being the absolute greatest. For every single life he ends. Then he just starts ripping out everything from the inside. He starts with the small fry, and once he's finished with them, the kid asks for every single thing. If they can actually make it back home with all that loot. They strap the beast in. They both grab a side to lug it back, and while they're walking, he asks if that Jiba hide can be used for other stuff. Ifrai calls him a total idiot and says he's told that only women sew, but he can trade tusks with them, so he gets totally confused and starts arguing that girls should be out hunting too. He straight up tells them that's not his job. Everyone called him out for talking big when he's literally just an F-rank. The hunter explains that since she's the new head of the Fat clan, she had to learn everything from her dad. The two start fighting instantly, and Asuna lets a comment about Ifa's body slip before demanding to know what "keep it in your heart" actually means so she can decide his. Back at home, he just crashes onto the floor, totally drained and bummed that they didn't get a single pico leaf. Eiffel starts talking smack, saying he's basically as weak as a girl with anemia. He lets out a wicked laugh and tells her that from this moment on, everything changes. This is just the training phase, and now they're about to start tearing through the Jiba. Suda's already got everything set up with the animal on the table and his knives ready for action, but he can tell Ifo isn't exactly hyped about it. He tells her to look alive because things are about to get seriously wild. He's holding a big hunk of meat while he tells her what's up. She's gotta figure out how to use this power right now. He grabs a sharp knife to slice away all that extra fat. But then he gets a weird feeling because the girl is being way too quiet. It asks her if she's seriously starting to nod off. Her eyes snap open, and she screams that she totally wasn't dozing off. While he's bringing the meat over to the fire, he catches a glimpse of her and thinks she looks totally pretty right then. He locks back in and gets right back to business. He's totally wiped and wants to nap, but the boy just won't quit. He's totally locked in, slicing every last bit of meat because he refuses to leave even one piece behind. He keeps at it, showing Ifa exactly how to grip the knife to get that perfect slice. He's hitting his absolute breaking point, and her outfit is definitely not helping him keep his cool. Asuda starts showing him how to clean the bones, but she's complaining that she'd rather just slice his back instead. He's so obsessed with his cooking that he literally collapses right on the floor. As soon as the prep is done, he just collapses on the floor, totally wiped out. Ifa pokes him with her foot and asks why he's just sleeping there. He tries to deny it, but she's dead serious because she literally caught him napping and feels totally awkward, while he just asks if he really passed out. She hands him the spices and tells him to use those crushed pico leaves so they don't waste a single bite of meat. He admits it was a total nightmare to find them all, but she's just mad that he kept dozing off. He keeps his mouth shut, but he knows for a fact she was the one actually napping. This dude in a suit is literally counting every single vegetable. He's got 4 poisons in 5 different spots, but before the cooking even starts, he just asks if that's supposed to be a small snack. I was totally stunned and just had to ask if that's really what he thinks of me. Just needing it bad enough is all it takes to keep your body healthy. William asks him why he's making such a shocked face. Right then, it hits him that this world might actually have its own rules for stuff like protein and nutrition. He straight up says that cooking Jiba meat is his thing now. This was his top priority, and with his power, he was locked in. He starts slicing through them like it's nothing. Memories of his dad start flooding back to him. Asuda asks if she's just treating him like he's some kind of outsider. She checks her stash and says all she's got is some fruit wine and salt. He asks for some salt, but she shuts him down and says it's only for making dried meat. She tells him that the stuff she gave him is totally enough to keep him from catching any nasty bugs. He can tell she's starting to get really annoyed. But even with all that, he wasn't backing down. Ifa brings him exactly what he asked for, and the second he sees that blue stone, he realizes it's actually mineral salt. Ifo tells him a full set of Jiba tusks is the trade for that salt, and he better not go wasting it. That's when it finally clicks for Asuna, and she realizes exactly why she's so mad. As he scrapes the salt, he's seriously thinking about taking a sip of that wine. But she's way too fast and gulps down the wine first. He's super worried and asks why she's drinking like that, and she tells him that. She's 17 now, so she's basically calling all the shots. Asuda's starting to think that maybe people in this world just count their age differently. The guy practically yells that they're the same age, but she definitely doesn't look like it. He didn't really care about it at all. Then he just gets right back to whipping up some food. He's tossing in some fat and salt to make it taste incredible. He's frantically trying to pull it off so it doesn't turn into a gross mess like last night's stew. He finally shows up, lugging a big stack of firewood. The boy stops her and says it's way too early to turn up the heat, but she argues back that the meat needs a lot of cooking before it's even edible. The kid tells them to keep the heat low and let it slow cook. He starts tossing in the rest of the ingredients, and he's totally thrown off by this vegetable that looks exactly like a potato. She tells him the name of the place is Poitin. One of the suits grumbles that this girl always has to share her opinion and just won't shut up. The guy is totally clueless, so Iface explains it again. You need 2 potions, 3 areas, and a bit of pico leaf to make a stew that keeps you hyped all day just like the villagers say. The kid starts whining and says, it's basically chanko, that massive stew sumo wrestlers eat, and when Ife says she's starving, the boy tells her the food is almost done. He's back to cause some major drama and says he's about to start wiping away the competition. This totally catches the girl off guard and she's like, wait, why? He's got no choice but to go through with it. The kid tells them he only needs an hour to wrap everything up and add the finishing touches. Ai is left totally shocked by how much time this is actually taking. Eiffel admits he's taking way too long to cook and says he's sorry for the wait. She totally blames herself, though, since she let him start cooking without even knowing what he was up to. The girl is so hungry she literally freezes to the floor, so Usra asks how she's doing and promises the food will be ready in a flash. He shouts that he's gonna turn him into a total feast. He tosses in a tiny pico leaf and boom, everything goes absolutely wild. He yells out that the soup cube is finally ready, and it looks totally insane. He finally says sorry for keeping her waiting all this time. The soup totally caught her off guard, so she asked him why he didn't add any pointin'. But he promises her that it's actually super good. The two of them sit on the floor as Asuda happily digs into the soup. He realized those ingredients actually made the meat taste incredible. He takes a bite and the meat is crazy tender, and he's hyped about how this whole spot turned out. Eiffel grabs another helping, but Asuda is starting to freak out because she hasn't even looked at him once. He asked her straight up what she thought of the soup. The huntress tells the girl that cooking for that long is just plain weird and makes zero sense. The one thing you absolutely need to stay alive. But then she totally catches him off guard by saying it definitely had the taste of a straight-up feast. Looking totally satisfied, the girl finally spoke up. They say food is supposed to be the one thing that makes everyone happy. She could really feel his passion for cooking and tells him that all his hard work definitely wasn't for nothing. She's totally stuck and has no idea how to put her feelings into words. She admits he's totally right about the food being fire and tells him to stop making that weird face. Out of nowhere, the kid just starts bawling his eyes out. He thanks her, finally feeling like he actually matters, and realizes that warm spark in his chest is what it's like to be happy. 4 days went by, and Asuna was seriously having a hard time dealing with those poisons. He had no clue what to do with the guy, so he just spent his time picking herbs and hauling logs. He asked Ifo if he could use the potions, but putting one in the stew made it mushy, boiling it made it fall apart, and frying it turned it into weird, fluffy lard. Trying to eat it raw was a total fail because it was way too tough, and just as he starts yelling for help, Ifa smacks him and tells him to keep it down. While she's out hunting, he's back home cooking, and when Usra apologizes, she tells him she's got a little surprise for him. She hands him some fresh clothes and a dagger, telling him he's just borrowing them for now. She gives him some of her dad's old keepsakes, and when Asuna asks if she's really sure about lending something so special, she says it'll be totally fine. They're trying to make sure nobody clowns on M while they cross the river. She warns him that if he wears white, he's officially stuck outside. But he points out that without any spare clothes, he's gonna be totally naked while he dries off. He thanks her and promises to be careful with the gear, but Ifrat warns him not to do anything dumb like walking around totally naked. Then she asks if he finally figured out a way to cook all those poisons. Asuda admits he's still totally stumped and is trying to wrap his head around the whole thing. He's basically trying to cut way back on all those potions. Ifra brings it up again, saying you've gotta eat Jiba meat if you don't want to get sick. He figures she's in great shape just by looking at what she's eating. Asuda starts overthinking his meal plan, making sure he's getting every single amino acid, vitamin, and mineral he needs to stay in top shape. Just like that, he finally puts the pieces together and starts putting on a total act. These areas are built in layers just like an onion, but they're still missing that one secret ingredient. She's dying to know what he finally figured out, but Suta pulls the girl into a massive hug. He says that because of Afa, he finally figured it all out. So the kid finally makes his big choice. He figures she just sees this poitum grain as a vital carb she needs to stay alive. But when he finally took a bite, it tasted exactly like dry flour. He's got a hunch, so he decides to put it to the test and see if he's actually right. So he decides to whip up a dish using that powerful ingredient, and his big plan is to totally transform it, shriveling up into a totally dead, dry flour. He starts planning out the perfect way to get it all ready. He tosses it in to cook with just a splash of water, until it's literally ground down into a total pile of mush. Then he just leaves it out there to dry in the sun. An hour passes and the dough is finally finished. It's super dry and rock hard, so he gets the big idea to just crush it into flour. Asura sparks the fire and tosses the flour right in, thinking that if this somehow actually worked. Now it's supposed to get all sticky. He keeps stirring the pan, just waiting for it to finally get all sticky. He's wondering if Ifa will actually let him try something totally different. He walks right up to her and tells her he's about to cook up a brand new dish. The girl just tells him he can do whatever he wants. Ifa shifts how she's lying there, and Asuna is totally sure she's about to snap. He flashes a big smile and tells her he's trying on her dad's shirt, asking if he actually pulls it off. But she just tells him straight up that it looks totally trash. Feeling totally defeated, Asuda realizes there's no way he can talk to her right now, so he just bails and says he's heading back to the kitchen. As you grab the ingredients, you realize these pico lives can keep the meat fresh for 5 whole days. He's got the Jiba meat and all the other veggies ready to go. The kid uses that info to his advantage. He's gonna fry the whole area the second he's ready. He tosses it all together with the meat and sprinkles. Just a tiny pinch of mineral salt. Back at the scene, Ifa is still just lying there on the ground. Next up, it's time to point and pull it right out. She pours it right on top to finish the job. Keep the whole thing from falling apart. To get the temperature just right, the kid starts chucking small pieces back in. He's just tossing it back and forth between his hands. It chucks the battered pieces straight into the pan. He's about to get fried, and right at the perfect second, he tosses the chopped pieces in and pours the fruit wine right on top. He covers up the fried patties to get that smoky flavor, finally hitting the last steps of his recipe. Ifra pops out of nowhere and totally scares the boy, but when he asks what she's doing, she just says it's her house and she'll go wherever she wants. Asuda's starting to think that maybe she actually found the whole thing pretty cool. Back to the food, he pulls those crispy patties out and drops them straight into a bowl. And since he's got both hands totally full right now, he tells the girl to hold onto it. And those hands are just another massive nightmare they have to deal with. He tosses even more into the pan, mixing it right in with all those meat juices, fat, and fruit wine. He starts mixing it up and shouts that he's gonna drench the whole thing in extra sauce. Then it tells her to slide those bowls right over to it. Asuda dumps the sauce right on top and he calls out that the Cuba burger, or maybe the Juba burger, is finally ready. He mentions the potions and heads out, leaving everyone stunned that he actually fused those things together. He comes back with the dose ready and shows her, but she's just more confused than ever. The kid says he just fried up some flour and water, and it actually turned out just like okonomiyaki. He tells them they gotta eat it fast before all that flavor disappears. He finishes his prayer and shouts that it's finally time to dig in. Everything about this felt super weird to him, especially that kid. He notices her whispering something under her breath. Asuda points out that this bread literally has 0 flavor. She just had to toss a piece of it right into the meat. This guy takes one taste and realizes the sauce is absolutely fire. That sweet fat, the savory meat, and the hit of fruity wine make this taste absolutely incredible. He's super hyped about his new creation, so he decides to call it the Juba burger. He says the absolute best part of the whole thing was finally toasting that Puritan. It used to be a total nightmare to even try and eat. He flashes a huge grin, looking totally hyped about how his dish turned out. The guy with the knife demands to know what's so funny, and the boy. He finally realizes he messed up big time for totally ignoring her. The second she asked her what she thought of the food, the kid looks down and realizes there's something seriously wrong with the meat. P. Witten are vanishing like crazy, but Ifro just sits down, picks out some food, and says it's delicious after taking a bite. Asuda's hyped about her answer, but he tells her he needs way more details. He tries to start a war, but all he gets is a hard slap across the face. The guy drops to his knees, totally confused by her reaction, and says he's super sorry if that hug made things weird. Ife just tells him he talks way too much and needs to just deal with it if she's done talking. Now the kid is even more clueless than before. She turns her back and begs him to look the other way. Asura finally takes her word for it, knowing that if she says it's delicious, it's the real deal. This little guy starts creaking the door open just a tiny bit. She asks what they're eating, saying she just couldn't ignore that amazing smell of cooked meat. Ifa demands to know what that white thing is and kicks Remy Ru out, reminding her she already warned her to stay away. Van Asuda finally clocks that these two actually know each other, but he's still feeling pretty suspicious about the whole thing. Right at the front door, the girl says it's been way too long, but Ifa is already back to her usual teasing. Remy starts firing off a million questions about there. Asuna asks who the girl is, and the kid tells her she's Remy Ru, the youngest daughter of the Ru clan and a friend of Ife. She totally hates noisy kids like her and tells her to just get lost and go home. The girl bursts into tears and looks totally panicked, while Asuda demands to know why she'd say something so messed up to a kid. I had to make the sobbing stop, so I. She claims she was just joking and only said it because the Sun clan totally hates her guts. The Ru clan seriously needs to back off and stay far away from her. She says it'd look totally bad if Remy kept crying outside, so she tells her to just get in the house. The girl just smiles and sits between them, saying the Sun clan isn't even scary because her dad told her so, but Eiffel warns her that a leader shouldn't have such a careless attitude. All that yapping just leaves the pseudo totally lost. Rooney hits up the kid and asks if he knew some sketchy guy just broke into the Falkland. They strictly banned her from going to IFA's house until they could figure out who this guy really was. Usura points out she's already sitting right next to the sketchy guy, but Rini defends him by saying he looks fine in Gyurufa's clothes, especially since she really likes Afa and Gyurufa. That's why she's always visiting them, and the second she realizes that's the name of the huntress's Fang, everything finally clicks. The little girl explains that wearing the clan's clothes means you're officially part of the family, so she asks again if he's Ife's husband, but the woman just snaps. She tells him she only lent him some clothes, and her harsh tone makes Asuda wonder if he should just suck it up and hide his sadness. Remy lines in, totally curious to see what's up with the food. She asks what it tastes like, he explains what everything is, and she gets so hyped she begs for a bite. And right there, Spoonie is actually feeding the girl, telling her she was in for a massive shock. He asks if this is against the rules, and she confirms it's totally forbidden. He's already done enough crimes to get thrown in a Japanese jail, but Asuda just keeps feeding the girl to see what she thinks. Rooney's loving every bite and can't believe it's actually Jiba meat, so he starts asking how they even pulled this off. You made this so juicy, and it seriously tastes amazing. She grabs his shirt and starts shaking him for answers, and he's honestly shocked by how strong she is. Eiffel stops her right there, saying food is just for survival and asking if she seriously forgot that wanting anything extra is strictly forbidden. The girl says sorry, and now that Asuda's finally free, he thanks her for the save while apologizing for the whole mess. The huntress warns her that it's getting dark, so if she's done talking, she better start heading home. Rumi, thanks for showing me that awesome food. She introduces herself to the boy and asks him for his name. She collapses to her knees, totally breaking down in tears. She begs him to help her out and teach her how to cook that meal so she can save their leader, Jiba, who might not make it out alive. Ifa finally asks Asud if he's actually heading to the Ru clan to start a fight, and I'm totally here for it. Everyone's confirming that leader Jiba is the one. Someone hooked her up with all that gear. He's totally locked in, saying that if he has the chance to save someone with his own hands, he's going to do it. Just a day earlier, the guy tells Remy he has no clue how her grandma is actually doing. But she just asks him to let her know when the food is finally ready. Eiffel points out that whenever a firekeeper from a different clan cooks, they're actually supposed to use that clan stove. Asuda realizes they're doing this so they can keep guard while someone else is busy cooking. So you tell Remy Ru to swing by and grab them as soon as she's ready. The girl flashes a huge smile and thanks him for finally agreeing to it. He's staring right at his iPhone screen. Asuda looks worried and says she seems a bit down, explaining that Grandma Jiba is super special to her and she really wants to help Remy too. Still, she really just wanted to say no to the whole thing. He asked why she didn't just say that sooner, and even though the vibe got super awkward, he just couldn't bring himself to say no. Ifa's a little unsure, but she says this all went down 2 years ago, right after her crazy showdown with Diga's son. Leader Donna Ru actually stepped up and proposed to marry the head woman of the Ru family. She turned him down because she'd rather be a hunter, and honestly, the whole confession is making Asuda super nervous. She keeps going and explains that Donna was only smiling because they're planning to take them all out. They tried to join the clans through an arranged marriage, even though both sides totally hated each other's guts. This makes one of the guys super mad because their plan totally ignores the girl's right to choose for herself. Ifraz says she tries her best to stay away from the clan, but it's super hard since they own a massive chunk of the forest. She's sobbing as she warns him about the danger of getting mixed up with the Ru clan. You're probably gonna end up getting dragged right into a massive fight with the Sun clan. Usura tries to cheer her up, saying she might not get their weird clan rules, but he hates seeing her so down and just wants to see his savior smile again. Wait. The girl tries her best to force out a tiny smile. Fast forward to today, and Remy Ru shows up way ahead of schedule. And he's still saying sorry for making him wait. Usura tells her to chill out since he actually showed up like he promised. Then he starts stuffing gear into a bundle because they've got a ton of prep work to do. As he walks through the village, the kid realizes these houses look way different than the ones back in Ifaz. Rivia says there are 13 people in the family, but since one's a baby, they're only cooking for 12. The kid looks super stressed and says he was told he'd be using the clan's special gear. But he's gotta know if there's actually enough for all 12 of them. She said yes, but it was all a trick, and I walked right into her blade. The second it asks, you're totally good to just hand it over. Remy's totally down to do it too since it's actually a huge tradition to hand your swords over to a different clan. He remembers Ifa's words and feels relieved that he only has to deal with this while he's getting everything ready. Ruby then reveals she's brought some guests with her, Ifa from the Falkland and Asuda. The whole clan rushes out of their homes, and they're totally shocked to see the boy, while the huntress claims Remy was the only woman she ever knew from that family. The girl introduces the group, Tiedemann, the former chief's wife, her grandma Remy Ru, and a young woman named Rana. That name instantly catches his ear and starts bringing back some major memories. She looked exactly like the Rana from his original world, and he totally flaked on his promise to make hot pot with Borfer. He even starts thinking about his dad. He just walked away and left him there, feeling totally abandoned. And he let loose a son that looked straight up terrifying. Ranaru notices he's acting super weird and asks if he's okay, so the guy explains that he actually knows someone else with that exact same name. She notices he looks totally down and asks him what's going on. Asuda wipes away his tears and straight up says no. Ruby introduces the whole crew, and the boy suddenly realizes he didn't catch a single name. Ifit introduces herself and tells everyone she's the perfect fit for the job. He's all hers now, at least for the rest of the day. With a big grin, the guy tells them the girl actually invited him over to use the clan's stove. The clan's grandma welcomes them and says she, Remy, and Rana are all jumping in to help. She even asks him if he was actually born in another country. Vina gets super curious and asks if he was born on the outside, wondering why he's being so secretive about where he's from. The kid tells them he was actually born in Japan. He'd never even heard of a place called Amsterhorn, and as crazy as it sounds, he wasn't even born in this world. Vina is super curious about this random outsider who's totally lost and somehow ended up on their continent. Remy gets super hyped and waves Asuda over to check out the stove. He's totally blown away by the stoves, seeing one just for grilling meat and another for boiling. He's totally hyped about his new stove, but then Reina shows up and asks how he's gonna get that Jiba meat soft without even boiling it. They're checking if he hid something extra in that meat, and man, these pseudo-fiends are asking some seriously tough questions, but she said they could have just given him the meat, but he was dead set on doing things his way. But right then, the kid gets totally sidetracked. He spots her necklace and notices everyone has 3 tusks, so he asks if they trade them for food. She explains that this charm was actually a gift from someone special. They treat these women like a lucky charm for staying healthy, but Benasuda finally catches on. It's way more than just money because they can craft all sorts of cool accessories with it, which is totally different from the fat clan that only hunts every 5 days. He looks over at Afa, and she's looking seriously annoyed. That's when Ramai shows up with the deadly poisons. The clan's grandma asks the huntress if she's the one who actually caught that Jiba. She gives a bored nod, and Titanium is totally shocked that a girl could actually hunt a beast like that. She explains that her dad taught her everything, so she's a total expert at surviving in the woods all by herself. The old lady asks her if she's really planning on dying all by herself. Ifa tries to speak up, but the woman cuts her off, warning that the Faklan are going extinct and asking if she even wants to have kids. Eiffel hangs back and watches them cook, while Remy asks if the water for the potions is right, and Asuda explains they need to make them just like the ones she. Even worse, I'm still in a total mood while staring right at the girl. He realizes there's something seriously off about her. Now he's starting to wonder if she was actually talking to someone else a second ago. He walks over to Rena while she's busy whipping something up in a pot. She warns that if they're boiled too long, they'll just turn into a gross pile of mush and Grandma Gibbo. He's not gonna be able to eat them anymore. Usra asks if she's ever cooked peewitens, and she admits she tried it for her grandma once, but her family totally chewed her out for it. The kid says he's gonna finish with the poisons first, then he's getting the meat ready. Remy looks totally caught off guard. She says she's literally never seen meat cooked like that in her entire life. The Yum cook says he grabbed this cut right from the spot between the Jiba's back and shoulders. Tiananmen claims they won't touch anything but the back legs of a Jebus. Then the kid just fires back, saying he already told him the exact same thing. He wonders how that's supposed to feed a whole family, but the elder explains they actually hunt 2 Jibas a day and toss the leftovers into a ravine so the forest dwellers can't eat them. She says there's a wild dog living down in the ravine that sends the souls of the Jibos back to the forest. The kid asks if they really have to dump the rest in the woods, and the old man says it's to keep weak people from finding it, since they're terrified eating it will lead to a child with 0 honor. He thinks it's just another lame, strict tradition, and he's already got the dried dough ready to go. Asuda says the next move is to chop everything up into tiny little pieces. Remy is actually having a total blast with this, but right as she tries to slice into another dried poitin, the guy snatches it right out of her hand, telling her he's got other plans for it and needs to go prep the areas. He says he needs way more than that and tells the girl to lead him straight to the storage shed. Then he looked right at Ifa and asked if she's actually gonna help haul all this gear. He walks into the storage room and his jaw drops when he sees a massive treasure trove of food waiting for him. Hands start raining down all over the place as the next ingredient gets added to the mix, but he turns it down, saying he's got 0 time to learn how to use it. Ifers is super curious and starts snooping through every single corner of the storage room. As she pictures the scene, she finally understands the total shock he felt watching it all go down. Now that they've got everything they need, Asuda tells the crew it's time to head back. A loud voice screams out, demanding to know who left a Jiba just sitting there. I was standing right in the middle of the path, and man, the whole vibe just felt super sketchy. He walks right up to her dad, Donda, to say hi and mentions he actually showed up super early that day. He finally realizes this is the same guy who asked Ai Fei to marry him. Super annoyed, the guy asks Asuda if he's the foreigner staying with the Fa clan, mocking him for being way wimpier and paler than he heard. Even though he was terrified, it finally clicked. This is the dude who rushed Wei into the back of the booth. The guy snaps that Ifav didn't just shame the Ru clan, but now he's showing up at his house with some random outsider. Donna is totally fuming and asks the girl if she's really trying to mess with the clan's honor even more. But hey, you can't really blame them for that. He reminds the guy they're cooking for Grandma Jiba like he promised, and she asks if he's really gonna bail on helping an old lady. The guy nods and says they're Jiba eaters, but if they mess up, there's no way it's gonna hold up much longer. This kid shouts out for Remy and then he warns them that just because their dad is chill, it doesn't mean he's gonna let everything slide. But the girl just tells Rudo to shut his mouth. Then Asuda steps in and backs her up, proving she's telling the truth. Then he suddenly shows up to save Jibaru right when things get crazy. He's the legendary firekeeper who guards the flames for the Fat Clan. Don just tells him to go ahead and do whatever he wants. Looking totally confident, Asuda finishes getting everything ready. Then he tells them to start bringing out the food. He acts all tough in front of the leader, but he's actually low-key terrified and can't even look him in the eye. Renal lets everyone know the food is ready, and Asuda gives her a quick thanks. He says he'll catch up in a second, and Asuda walks right over, putting his full trust in the group. He's just letting go and leaving his whole future up to luck. He runs into Jiba Ru, this super weak and wrinkly old lady. The Ru clan members make a hand sign that Isekai'D has never seen before. They talk about the forest's gifts and thank the firekeeper for giving them all that energy. Surprise, he actually remembers me doing the exact same thing, and while he didn't care back then, he thinks it's total garbage now. She was definitely giving her thanks the exact same way. Just like that, he realizes that even though they're nothing alike, believe it or not, these guys are still totally human. Even with all those weird traditions, they're definitely still going to fight to keep their families safe. Rima steps up with the plate and serves her grandma the dish she made using Juba meat. He grabs a spoon and carefully feeds the old lady a bite. Jibaru just stays quiet for a bit, and it's making Asuda and Rima really start to worry. Who's asking what the heck just went down? Shauna says it's just a gross pile of meat that's basically total trash. Grammage was shaking like crazy. She tries to force herself up, but her granddaughter is literally begging her to just stay down and rest. This just makes Donda whine even more, claiming the old lady is also totally ticked off at the firekeeper. Graham catches everyone off guard as he suddenly stands back up. Majibus says the guy is acting like a total kid, pretending everything is still exactly the same. She's totally just saying that as an excuse. Just because he's not feeling it doesn't mean everyone else has to hate it too. He's acting like a total baby, so the granddaughter tells her grandma to sit down slowly, and the old lady apologizes for doing stuff she's way too old for. She calls over a guy named Suda, who introduces himself and asks to chat after they finish eating, and the boy is totally down for it. Rana just keeps on feeding her grandma. Jiba Ru tells them it's all working out because of the... She thought back to the days before they were even a thing for us humans, back when they were living in the southern jungle. She talks about how they used to live off fruit and lizards until the war burned their forests and forced them west, where they lost their mountain home and got hunted by Gibas, and even when. She figured it'd be way better if they were all just wiped out. She's super grateful and thanks him for reminding her how awesome food can be, even though she's totally blushing. The kid swears he only showed them how to put it all together. So she grabs her necklace and gives the guy her blessing. It's a super rare treasure, handed down by the whole clan. Ifo whispers in his ear, telling him to just take it since he totally earned this reward. And every single person in the family has to give their okay too. Now the kid's hands are totally overflowing with those Jiba tusk necklaces. Donda tells him to stay humble and not let the hype go to his head since he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. The kid straight up forced him to swallow some deadly poison. Looking totally terrified, the kid asks if the whole thing was just a massive failure. He's totally failed and is freaking out about his punishment, but Ifez just tells him to chill and ignore the threats since he's already been blessed. She was right on the verge of saying something. But Jimaru calls her over, and the old lady says she's grown so much, asking her to come a bit closer. The woman touches her face and tells her exactly what she's been. She grows up to be a total beauty and looks exactly like her mom. Tears are streaming down her face as she admits she's been ignoring her for way too long. Jiba Ru says it's totally fine and they'll have plenty of time to talk later. Suda's feeling great after their talk, but then Rudo calls out that it's getting late and tells them they should just crash there for the night. He heads outside to find his cabin, but they all look exactly the same. He thinks about how chill Afa seems and looks down at his bag of food with a huge smile. Even though some people actually liked his food, he's still feeling super embarrassed as a trainee chef because he can't stop obsessing over Dondi's, calling his cooking literal poison. Out of nowhere, the kid totally jumps out of his skin. His face went even whiter than before. Vina catches him and asks what he's up to, and while he's busy stuttering that it's nothing, she suddenly asks if they can go talk in private. He's totally lost, but she tells him this is a secret talk meant just for him. Yasuda thinks the whole vibe is super weird, and even though he doesn't think she's a bad person, he's totally stressing over what they're even going to talk about. What could she possibly want with this outsider, leaning in close to whisper right in his ear? Gina asks him if he's seriously clueless about what life is like outside the forest, and the whole massive world waiting outside. The kid starts sweating bullets, clearly freaking out. She tells him to lose the serious face because this is totally a secret. She says it's not for right now, but when the moment is finally right, she just wants you to remember her. She heads out, leaving him stuck thinking about that outside world Vina mentioned, someplace way past the forest that isn't even his old world. Suddenly, iPhone pops up and scares the life out of him, so he asks if she's done talking while she grills him on why he's even there. He says he got totally lost because every single house looks exactly the same. She tells him it's a no-brainer. If he needs an empty house, he just has to find one where the lights are totally off. He flashes a totally awkward smile and says it's actually the truth. As they head out, he whispers that he's about to be taken out in a locked room. The next morning, I finish getting ready and let Asuvik know I'm good to go. Now it's finally time for them to head out and start the hunt. He only opens his mouth to ask exactly when he passed out. She gets super worried and asks him if he's actually feeling sick. He says he's doing just fine, and then the huntress shows up. She tells him to take a breather since he's done way too much already, and she promises she's gonna thank him for real later. He crashes to the ground and calls her an angel, feeling like he's being pulled straight up to heaven. Eiffel calls out to him, but he just brushes it off and says he can't sleep. Suda's stuck replaying that night. He was a total nervous wreck, while I actually look like I'm doing just fine. Everything's falling apart just because Donda called his food poison, and he's totally lost since he only used the ingredients they already had. He's not even sweating it anymore since he already did exactly what Rumi asked. And help I fix all the crazy drama they're dealing with. You're so annoyed that you're literally starting to lose your cool. He's not taking that for an answer because he finally remembers exactly whose son he is. He's the firekeeper chief of the Falkland, and that's just the start. But more than anything, the guy is totally obsessed with cooking. He totally gets that his cooking isn't going to vibe with everyone. And honestly, that's totally fine, but here's the catch. The Damido totally crossed the line by calling it poison, clearly trying to pull a fast one. The boys have to figure out what they're gonna do next. He's collapsed on the ground, totally spent and unable to move a muscle. Ifra tells him to chill for a bit while she goes to talk things over with the Ru clan. Asuda figures that just getting away for a bit might be exactly what they need. He tags along with the huntress, but hearing those guys shouting makes him wonder if they're actually heading out for a hunt. He suddenly realizes they never gave him any blessings and starts wondering what the deal is. Rudo calls out and catches him off guard, making him suddenly remember that he actually got a blessing from him. The young hunter asks if he's looking for the girls, and Asuda gets all shy and says yeah. Rudo tells him the girls are off taking a bath, and Asuda is so shocked he asks him to say that again. And he's totally shook now that he knows it's for real. Rudo asks if he's lost and offers to lead him there, making the guy in the armor totally freak out while he tries to deny everything. He's totally losing it, picturing his body being ripped apart while Ifa just nods along because he broke a major rule, but then Rudo grabs him by the shirt and drags him away. Even though he's totally freaking out, the rookie hunter still asks why he's being so shy. They finally show up, and the young hunter tells them the bath is right behind the gate. He gives him a few quick pats on the back. This sends the poor kid tumbling right inside. Asuna spots the girls in the bath and instantly passes out cold on the floor. Ifa storms in, totally annoyed because the girls promised they weren't going to the baths. Suddenly, she looks down and spots Suda just lying there on the ground. Rana notices something is totally wrong with him, so the huntress tells everyone to back off while she tries to help. They're super nervous about calling his name in Venus since his clan members are already on edge. I've hooked this gear up just so I can hear his heart beating. She ends up landing so her upper body is right on top of Sue's face. He's still totally out of it, but he's trying to figure out what that soft skin touching him actually is. He's gasping for air as his eyes suddenly snap wide open. Ifa checks in to see if he's doing all right. He jokes that she has a weird way of waking people up, so she just kicks him, and then we skip to later on. I actually felt a little bad for landing that kick, but he just shrugs and tells them it's all good. Things got super awkward when they realized he was actually a guy, since everyone totally mistook him for a girl, which is actually pretty normal for firekeepers. Rudo dragged him straight to the girl's bath, so he completely lost his chance to bring up the poison again. So then Shiley actually asked me if she could do it. She's starving for some dinner, so she totally agrees to go. He says that's literally all she ever eats, and he even compares the soft meat to what he felt on his face earlier that morning. He starts laughing, but she just calls him a total idiot. But honestly, all he can think about is how crazy soft they feel. He's totally kicking himself for passing out and missing his chance to touch it, especially since that weirdly soft feeling gave him a major case of the jitters. He thanks her for everything and gets totally locked in. Serta gives him one more shot to cook for Donda, but he says he's gonna need her help as the clan leader to pull it off. He really stepped up as the leader last time, so Ifa says she totally owes him one and asks him if he's 100% sure he's got this win in the bag. He was so sure he'd win that he told her she didn't even need to stress. She walks right up to the Ru clan leader and starts acting totally humble. He's asking for a huge favor and wants to see if you'll actually hear him out. He's totally down, so she asks her clan's cook to whip up another massive meal for the Ru family. The guy just laughs in her face and tells her she's gotta be kidding. By taking him on as fast as they can, he tells them he's dead serious. Domies acts like a total jerk and tells the kid he's not being brave, he's just being an idiot. To show some respect, he's giving them 3 whole days before the next stage kicks off. Back at her house, my enemy was already waiting for me. He reveals that Donda gave the command, and he's stepping up as the firekeeper in just 3. The wedding was only a few days away, and the clan was busy sticking to their usual routine. She warns them that things are about to get way more intense since they'll be serving at the big wedding reception. This is the big move that's finally going to bring the Root clan and the Written clan together. If he messes up, the whole Ru family is totally gonna turn against him. They're cutting them off and leaving the Fair clan totally stranded. He's totally blaming himself for dragging her into this mess, but she's not letting it get to her. She gives him the green light for the challenge, and he gets totally hyped, shouting that he absolutely has to win. This makes her totally second-guess him, and she straight up asks if like he hadn't already said that a million times. Navi gets serious, and they both lock in with a high five. As Asuna walks, he's racking his brain to figure out what he can actually do. Everyone thought the meat was poisoned just because it was way too soft. With all the ingredients he's bringing along, the kid's just praying he can pull this off. He lets him know that Remy actually went and talked to the women of the clan. He got exactly what he asked for when the girl suddenly popped up out of nowhere. With a huge smile, the little girl announces that she's finally rounded up all 4 women. Riene and Vina are totally down to help and ask him what they need to do. The kid thanks everyone for showing up, but he tells them that this time, the stakes are way higher. Seriously, the best way for them to help is to just sit back and do nothing, leaving them totally scratching their heads. They head straight into the house to see what's going on. They start chatting about the big wedding coming up and what Dan's been up to. Since the Ru clan is about to throw a massive feast, the man asks what's wrong, and Gadrian tells him that the groups trying to team up are total opposites. Let's look at the PR again. Pride is the most common suit of metaphor in this context. Let's try. I really thought I was untouchable. The girl introduces the group to the coach and tells him they're the ones who are gonna back up the Ru clan. They look totally freaked out right now. This guy straight up tells them he doesn't care who they're supposed to be. He's just praying that his son's big wedding party doesn't end up getting totally ruined. Gadrian finally chills out and lets them know he's super grateful for the backup. And he thinks his dad is totally blowing things out of proportion. The groom's just asking nicely that everyone has a total blast at the big party. This suit finally told me the truth about who I really was. They start prepping for the massive feast, and with a huge grin, she says she's super hyped for the food. They're putting absolutely everything on the line. Vina asks if he really brought 3 types of meat, and Rena wonders if he's making burgers again. But the kid shuts that down and says he's gonna make something totally different. The suitor announces he's cooking the 3 meats separately, and the girls are totally hooked, dying to see how it all comes together. They've got a massive bonfire roaring right where the big feast is about to go down. The Sude's dying to know how they built the place, but Eiffel yanks him away because the VIP guests are finally showing up. The ones getting married are Gazarin, Rutum, and Almamin. She just couldn't stop thinking about how nice that guy actually was. I warn him that he's staring at the bride way too much. Right then, the bosses of both clans show up and Dan Rudem is super hyped to finally dig into the food they're serving up. The bride's dad is actually a high-ranking inspector. Even the food looked super hyped about it. He looks at the roasted meat and says this is exactly how a wedding feast should look. But right then, the guy's face completely flips. He takes one look and says it looks totally different now. The guy snaps and yells, asking if they're really feeding his son that nasty meat meant for the months, basically calling his kid a monster. Dan's looking around and asking who even brought all this meat. Nasuda steps up and admits that he's the one who did it. The guy tells them that even though he knows the secret, he's going off about how important Beckwood is and says he won't let the meat thing slide, but the kid just asks him to take a tiny bite. That just makes the guy way more ticked off. He grabs the kid by the collar and says he gets why he's mad, but he only made the dish because Gadrin wanted something everyone could actually enjoy. Dan's feeling suspicious and grills his son, who just straight up admits it's all real. He warns them that if it tastes like some gross mutt meat, he's making his final judgment right then and there. Alpha grabs his sleeve and silently prays that the Fa clan is actually listening. Ramai Holes rushes right back into the action because he's determined to keep that kid safe. Dan starts stuffing his face with the food. We're talking 3 different kinds of meat. They vanish in the blink of an eye. The guy points and yells that there's one right by the food. He absolutely loved it and is already demanding they bring him even more. The Sude is totally caught off guard by how fast their vibe just flipped. But Dan just screams at him to bring even more. Donda is totally shocked and asks him if he's actually being for real. The groom's dad asks him straight up if he's finally gonna make a move himself. He's way too stubborn to admit he lost, so he just shrugs and says he thinks so. The Rutam clan leader shouts for the party to keep on rolling. Isuda feels super bad and apologizes to the girls for making them help him haul all those dishes. Vina grabs his attention by telling him her dad is finally ready to meet up. He's totally blown away when he catches Don just devouring his food. This guy catches on and starts asking questions, and that's exactly what he's got his eyes glued to. The guy just tells them that this time, things are gonna be different. The leader is just chowing down without saying a single word. But Donna totally catches him off guard when she says, watching the whole thing go down from way back. Remy yells that she's not working, but the boy is way too curious to let it go. Dama reveals he's a hunter and he's gotta take down Jiba, not just for himself, but for his whole family who can't fight back. So they've gotta keep their teeth super strong just to eat properly. But if they eat soft meat, their teeth get totally weak, so keep that in mind. That explains why the last meal felt like total poison, but Donda thinks this new food will actually keep their bodies exactly the way they are. Remy tries one more time to get his attention, begging him to just hear her out. But he told the girl to hold on for a second. Asuda says the dried meat is totally off limits. He served up the firm chest meat for them, since it's basically what they're used to. Remy and her squad scored the meat from the lower back and the shoulders. The guy was super confused and asked why he'd even do that, since food is basically just fuel to keep you alive. His eyes are totally lit up as he tells them he doesn't even need a reason. To a chef, seeing everyone hang out and vibe over a great meal is what it's all about. Donda says that's exactly where he gets all his pride from. He pulls a single tooth right off his necklace and hands it over to the kid. He says he'll give a blessing just for this food. She's totally throwing herself at the guy she likes. She tackles him to the ground for totally forgetting her, while Vino explains she's just super hyped from being the firekeeper. Then Remy asks if they can finally eat the meat or if they. Donna's totally thrown off by that and asks him what he actually means. Suitor admits he only brought the idea, while Vina points out that they were the ones actually keeping the fire alive. The guy tells them the Ru clan can whip up this food whenever they want. He even mentions that both of those G-rankers, Ruba, Rudo, and the whole squad are jumping right into the action. It's the kind of show the whole family can vibe with. He put together something that every single person there was totally vibing with. Dantel's finally in a way better mood. She tells the guy to stop making such a miserable face. Sue asks Remy if there's any meat left, but she tells him they're totally out. So she goes to ask him, but the guy is super embarrassed and says they're all out of meat, making Donda wonder what Asuda even expected to happen when he came looking for it. Dan tells the group to get over there and join the massive feast. Just to have a quick chat. The whole night sky was glowing under the light of that star. Ray throwing hands and the next were already sharing a meal. Final check on constraints. One line, yes. Simple, yes. The kid walks right up and asks the hunchback a question. Maybe she's mad because he's ignoring her or just because there's no burger, but she claims it's neither. She admits that back at the party, he actually made her feel proud for a second, but that feeling just ended up making her super frustrated. He asked why she was so frustrated when she totally had every reason to be proud. She admits that even as the clan leader, she just ended up dragging him down, and he really hates that she's being so hard on herself. So he shouts over to Isekai'D. He reaches out his hand and admits he couldn't have pulled this off alone, saying he's only there because she actually let him join the clan. Isekai'D grabs his hand and they jump into action together. They both raised their hands and swore to give it everything they've got as the firekeeper and the clan leader. Gazarin starts getting curious, wondering what the heck they're actually up to. No one understands what they're doing, while Asuda and Ifa are busy competing to see who can raise their hand higher. She tells him that since he helped her out, she's actually thinking about giving him a special reward. She does her thing and asks him what he's actually into. Asuda throws a total tantrum on the ground like a little kid because he wants that fluffy blanket, but Ifa tells him it belongs to the Ru clan and she doesn't have anything to trade for it. He plays it off as a joke, saying he only said it because she seemed way too serious. He brings up the Ru clan's vault and says they need some serious loot, so he's gotta figure out how to grab it all. Oh, and Iface is saying they're actually running super low on fruit wine. She usually hits up the Ru clan to trade gibbet tusks for all her supplies. But she's like, there's no way I can actually call this a gift. So she tells them that tomorrow they're all hitting up Gino.s. This is the massive city where all the trading goes down. Eiffel sorts out the Juba tusks for trade, and Asuna is totally hyped to finally hit the city for some supplies. Crossing that bridge was the first massive challenge he had to face, since there was literally no other way forward. Still, this fresh start was exactly what he needed, and looking out at the open sky finally helped him chill out. Any second now, I'm gonna tell her that the city is finally in sight. She points out the trading city of Genos, and you can already see the massive buildings and all kinds of different people everywhere. Sue thinks it's super sketchy that so many people are walking around with their hoods up. Looking at these guys, he realizes he actually fits right in. He's staring at this woman, wondering what her deal is, and Meifa asks if something's up, but he just says these guys are totally different from the forest folk, and she agrees, mentioning that people from all over the world come here to trade. It's getting way too quiet, and he starts to wonder if he's just imagining things or if everyone is actually dodging them. IFR speaks up again and tells the group they need to head over to the merchant. The merchant doesn't even look at them as he swaps those tusks for a pile of coins. It's super clear now that they're just straight up being ignored. Ifa says they can finally grab their supplies, and while the boy is amazed at how chill she's acting, he gets super hyped to go on a shopping spree until she reminds him they. Right after that, the two of them head out to grab all the ingredients. And at every single stall, everyone just acts like they're invisible. Ifa doesn't even care, but the girl is super happy. They finally have the basics, and she's totally hyped about how much stuff they bought. Ifa mentions they've still got some bronze coins left and asks if he wants to grab anything else. He's totally hyped up at the food stall, already dreaming about those juicy pork dumplings. One of the stewards asks if they can finally head home after grabbing a quick bite. He's honestly just dying to try something that someone else actually made. It's not really her vibe, but F5 agrees since it's not like it'll weigh her down. This kid walks right up to the food stand and orders 2 dumplings. The guy's eyes go wide as pure terror hits him. Everyone just calls them GBERS. The vendor serves up the dumplings and tells them to just drop the cash on the table. His dad hands him the fume and tells him he totally earned this reward. But the kid doesn't even look hyped at all and asks her what her deal is. If she's not feeling Kim, you can literally sue me while you're eating. She asks if it's totally weird for Jiba eaters to give Kamusu meat a try. She says the forest tribe wants a prize for every Jiba they take down, so everyone else thinks they're just straight up savages. They're out there hunting to keep the whole city safe, even if everyone else just looks the other way. She'd totally rock a suit if she actually liked those guys. He stops for a second to think it over. Ife just smiles and says she's not a fan of the capital people either because they're way too loud. He's honestly so hyped that she's thinking about them like that. She suddenly switches gears and asks him how that Kanusa dumpling actually tasted. He straight up admits her cooking is way better. And Ifa is right there to back him up. Out of nowhere, they hear some guy screaming his head off like a total jerk. Asuda spots the chaos and realizes exactly who he's looking at. The first guy he ran into was Diga's son, who snapped at the little girl for not paying attention when she bumped into him. Back in the city, the crowd is totally panicking and asking if fighting is even allowed, while someone else yells to call the guards. Ifa sees it all and admits the only way she knows how to handle cruelty is by being cruel right back. Shibara is one of the vendor's top enforcers, and even in a suit, he looks like he's ready to throw down. He tried to stop her, but she just brushed him off and told him to watch her bags. He's swinging that hooked staff one more time. She jammed her makeshift weapon right against his throat. The girl straight up tells the guy to get out of there. Otherwise, she's totally gonna use it to wreck him. One of those mysterious figures is just standing there, watching the whole thing go down. He thinks she's honestly the coolest girl ever. The guards finally show up, and they're demanding to know what's going on. Diga speaks up and claims that Ifa actually jumped him while he was on guard. He spots her holding a stick and demands to know what she's up to. Asuda tries to tell them she's innocent, but Ifa doesn't even listen and heads straight for the guard just to give that vendor's stick back. Out of nowhere, a guy steps up and says he saw the whole thing when that drunk dude crashed into the girl. Right as he was about to kick the kid, I jumped in and blocked him with my stick. This little kid just spills the beans and tells the whole story. Just like that, the soldier says there was no fight and tells everyone to keep moving. Ifa hands the staff back and is finally ready to roll. Suda starts asking about the witness who actually stood up for them. She straight up told him she was finally allowed to help him out. Out of nowhere, the guy pops up and tells them there's no need for all that thank you stuff. Masuda was left totally shook when he suddenly popped out of nowhere. He just tells them he's got something major to take care of and thanks them for the show. Things were getting super interesting as he started walking. He's bouncing down the path, totally hyped and jumping for joy. Wait, are we really back in the forest again? The kid looks totally wiped out from everything that just went down, and he agrees, saying this bridge is swinging way too much. She tells them to get dinner started right away so they can finally kick back and relax. But then they realize they've already got company waiting right there for them. That couple from the rich clan is already standing right at their door. The man tells them they're here because they've got a huge favor to ask the leader of the fat clan. I start to ask why they're even there, but then he tells the firekeeper he's got a huge favor to ask. The groom was totally blown away by her insane cooking skills. They want him to be the head chef for their massive wedding feast. This whole proposal thing is actually starting to make our guy feel pretty nervous. Gajarin says he's cooking for 100 people and apologizes for dropping this massive request out of nowhere. He asks him straight up if he's down for it. The kid thinks this is gonna take some serious effort. It means they finally see he's got some serious skills. Asuda says he's hyped to help out, but he's got one thing he needs to ask first. He asks if they're really sure about trusting him with such a huge task since he's never cooked for a crowd, so he begs for a few extra days to research ingredients and the two lock eyes for a second, and Gadrin finally gives the nod. He says he'll be waiting to hear his final answer. Asuna's totally stressed out, wondering how he's gonna find a massive kitchen, all those ingredients, and a whole crew to help him. iPhone calls out to him in a super quiet whisper. She tells him straight up that she's super proud of him. But the kid didn't hear a thing and just kept saying he was sorry. He turns back and asks if she just said something. She tells him he doesn't have to do it all alone, and since she's the clan leader, she's officially got his back. Rasuda's totally thrown off by how intense she is, since he always thought hunters were just lone wolves who did everything by themselves. Afa gets super annoyed and asks when she ever looks mad, so the boy tells her she's doing it right now, but then he surprises her by saying he's only made it this far. She whispers another compliment, telling him he totally earned her respect with his own power, but Asuna says sorry because she couldn't quite hear her. She finally admits his food is the real deal and tells him he's gotta start believing in himself. Her words really hit him deep, so he makes sure to thank her. Asuda sits on the ground checking the supplies and says they need a bunch of different dishes for 100 people, but when he asks if one ingredient is common, she's totally. It grabs 2 more ingredients and asks the same thing, but the girl still has no clue. Asuna remembers that Afa didn't even know what good food tasted like until their very first meal together. Meanwhile, Remy took a bite and said it tasted totally delicious. He suddenly remembers Reina saying that exact same thing back in the storage room. He tells them the Ru clan is the key to finding all the answers. Ife isn't exactly thrilled, but she says they have no choice but to trust them, and the boy admits it's pretty awkward. The huntress tells him she'll get permission for them to visit the Ru clan village and wants him to come along, so he agrees since that's exactly what a leader is supposed to do. Back at the village, Rana tells everyone she's already in the loop about the ceremony, and they can totally relax since her dad already gave the green light. She asks if Asuda is gonna be the head chef, and while he's acting all awkward and unsure, I'm honestly shocked they already got the green light. He asks if the food is being made right there at the banquet, and Ryan is just like, yeah, I think so. Asuda remembers they've got 4 stoves and wonders if they can actually cook enough food for 100 people. Since the portions are huge, Rana decides to turn the Jiba point into a soup and asks if she can use the 4th grill to cook up some meat. He's down for it, and Asuda is hyped because he thinks they can feed 100 people, so the boy reminds Rena about that time she offered him ingredients back in the storage room. She's totally shocked that he actually remembers, but then he speaks up and says he's actually got a favor to ask. Asura heads into the warehouse to get some answers from the village women, asking for anyone with cooking experience to step up and tell him exactly what ingredients they use and how they prep their food. They're completely stunned and don't even know how to answer that. Eiffel whispers to the kid that if he asks for some training too, it'll finally make sense why the couple hired him as their chef. He says he's gonna take a second to figure out which dish to serve up next. He's running out of time, so he's gotta get some answers fast. Asuda admits he's clueless because these ingredients are literally from another world, if he just tries to wing. Conan says she uses Jigo all the time even though she has no clue how it works, and she actually just eats it like a vegetable. Remy picks up another ingredient, and the woman says she uses chaki for the girl because it turns out totally soft and delicious. Vienna is holding this leaf-looking thing called Tino, and she says it's the best because it gets super soft when you cook it up. Asuna went to ask Reina, since she was the one talking about all those different spices last time. She shows up in one and tells them its name is Taraba. He suddenly remembers picking this thing up back in the city. She says you can totally eat it raw, but cooking it gives it a sweet and slightly bitter flavor. And right then, the kid realizes it looks just like a tomato. Reina's gonna ask her dad for more ovens and grab veggies from the market, but the real problem is the Jiba meat, since the girls aren't allowed to hunt. This totally freaks the kid out, as he realizes the sun is setting, and those guys are gonna be back any second. He makes up his mind and decides to just ask him straight up. Ifa looks a bit salty and snaps that she can totally hunt any. He asks her if she's sure she doesn't need a hand with that. Reina looks over and spots the guys finally showing up. But something about them feels totally different now. She points out the heavy smell of iron, and Iface explains it's actually a nasty mix of red Jiba fluid and human blood. The kid totally freaks out when he sees how badly Rudo is messed up. Asuna's just standing there, watching all the chaos go down. Just try to wrap your head around what just went down. While that's happening, the guys are hauling the hurt kid away. They decide to just sit him down right under a tree. He tries to get close, but I totally shut him down. He shuts him down, while at the exact same time. Someone yells a warning, and Rudo's eyes snap open the second he hears his name. He's totally desperate, so he just insists he's doing fine. He just smacked his head, and the first thing he did was ask about her dad. Shinru drops the news that her dad's days as a hunter are officially over. She says the guy is still out cold, but from what she's heard, a Jiba totally crushed her dad's body. She warns him that if things keep going like this, her entire family is going to be wiped out. She's the only one who can hunt, and she's totally stressed that she can't take care of her whole family all by herself. She says she's sorry for dragging Rudo into this whole mess. Masuda watched the whole thing and asked Ifer if the mission was a total fail, and she said yeah, but at least no one got taken out. This gets the kid thinking about how the huntress always hunts Juba solo and comes back acting like it was totally easy. Now he's dying to know how she pulls that off without getting hurt. He tries to step up and ask her what's really going on. But then Shin walks up and calls out to them. He yells out for Ifa. She asks if she's still out there hunting solo, and she says she definitely is. She asked to be taught how to pull off a sacrifice hunt. She says she has no clue about that, and right now, the only thing that matters is helping the people who are hurt. Super annoyed, the girl yells that since Ifa always hunts solo, she definitely knows the secrets, and she begs her to teach her so she can provide for her family. Usuri starts getting curious about the sacrifice hunt, so Ifat begins to explain everything. He tells the girl this is just one more reason why she shouldn't waste time on pointless talk. That makes her so mad she just storms right out of there. Asuda thinks Ifer's icy vibe is actually a major problem. It feels exactly like the very first time they met. The huntress asks if they can stop yapping about the feast and just save it for tomorrow. Asuda is still dying to find out what the sacrifice hunt is all about. He spots that Rudo's already up and headed off somewhere, I felt this heavy weight on me as he started chasing after the kid. Asuda catches up and lets Rudo lean on him, asking the young hunter if he's actually doing all right. Rudo is covered in blood but claims it's just a tiny scratch, so he asks Asuda to lead him to the river to wash up, making the firekeeper laugh because Rudo was the. While in the river, the boy scrubs every last bit of that liquid off. He gets clocked right in the face and starts stumbling back. He says his head feels way better now, and he's totally fine to head home by himself. The firekeeper is still super curious but a little nervous, so she asks if she knows anything about the sacrificial hunt. For a second, it looked like they both totally missed. They finally start to really get each other. Rudo asks what he's gonna do with that info, but Asuda swears it's not even for him. That kid from the Ru clan asks if Shin was the one who tipped him off. Rudo asks if the leader of the Fuck clan is the one who actually knows what's going on. He explains that the hunters use a sweet scent to lure the Jiba right to them. Asuda is totally stunned as he suddenly remembers that exact same smell from the very first time he met Ifai. Rudo admits he's just guessing, but the firekeeper is still dying to hear more because I told you guys earlier that she was totally clueless and acting super cold toward Shin. The kid explains it's a super old hunting trick he's still learning, but the secret is using your senses to bait those gibbers. They're using themselves as live bait, and that's when one student realizes this whole thing is actually a total death trap. It's a super risky move, but Gutherboy says hunters take pride in protecting their families, and everyone on this dangerous hunt is doing it for that exact same reason. He triggers a quick reflection because he thinks that stuff might be straight-up poison. But then it hits him that he's doing all of this just for his family. Suddenly, a wild idea pops into his head. He says sorry for letting Rudo head back solo and tells them he's gotta get back to the village right now. The kid is totally confused and keeps insisting he's already good to head back. Asuda finally gets what hunting is really about right in the middle of his sprint. He finally tracks down Alpha. They look super worried and ask if something went down. He just thanks her for sticking by him and says he's heading out to go have a serious talk with the guys in the village. The door swings wide open right where the whole group is hanging out. Donda tells him to hold up because they're right in the middle of patching up the wounded. Suda admits he's picking the absolute worst moment to ask this. He tells them to go hunt down 30 Gibas for the massive feast. Shinru gives him a cold stare, and he can tell she's judging him for asking for favors while her family is suffering. He knows it's totally fine, but if he doesn't speak up right now, he's gonna miss his shot forever. Shin's dad snaps awake and immediately grabs his Gyuba. He gives his daughter a small smile while grabbing a coat, telling her that hunting for everyone else is his biggest source of pride. That's his pride, and even if he's finished, she doesn't have to just toss it away. She vows to hunt down Jiba just to save the wedding, but Kira steps in to ask if she's actually for real. So then Donna makes a huge decision about those guys. The Ru clan is gonna hunt down as many Jibas as they need to. Asudith is super happy as she thanks them, finally seeing how much they really care about each other. Feeling super confident, he swears he'll cook the best meal ever for the wedding to make his family and everyone who picked him proud. A few days fly by, and Suda is already busy getting the massive feast ready. He's blown away by how well the guys are cutting the meat, and they tell him it's actually super easy now that the kid showed them what to do. The hunters bagged all 30 Jibas, drained out every drop of blood, and carved them up exactly how the kid showed them. A lot of people hated how he claimed the meat, but Danda didn't care and said even if only one family liked it, he was doing it his way. He's just about to tell the girls to start on the veggies when Remy suddenly shows up and shouts his name. Super hyped, the girl shows the women the veggies and tells them they brought everything from the city just like they asked. He takes one look at the pile and knows it's the perfect amount for all 100 people. He tells the women he's counting on them until the bank situation is over, while Rooney calls a suitor to say they haven't even used Taraba yet and asks what the plan is for all the gear they brought. Then the kid says he's actually planning to use it for a brand new dish. I caught him acting totally suspicious among the men while I was watching from outside the kitchen. She spots the Sun clan and wonders what they're even doing there. Asud started freaking out and asked if Diva was there too. She's worried about the fallout if he starts a fight, so Ife says she'll go check things out herself. Tell him to stay right there on the ground. Check it out, there's a Jiba that's already been totally taken down. One of the sons pipes up, saying they only showed up to drop off a gift for their spot at the big feast. Donda's like, wait, are you guys seriously calling that GIF and D? It explains why they weren't ready, but then the Ru clan leader drops a bombshell. He never even invited the Sun clan. Donda told them to start cleaning up all those gifts. His whole clan is way too busy to waste any time on that. He tells him to get lost, barely holding back his rage. Diga just smirks and asks if the Ru clan is really gonna be that rude, especially since they're only there to help get the wedding ready. Both leaders are locked in a massive stare-down. I'm phasing through everything as I close the gap. You could tell he was totally losing his cool. But then she spots something that looks totally fake. She thinks it's super weird and calls out to him. Diga blames the Ru clan for not inviting them to the party, but Asuda shouts at him and asks what he's doing there, before angrily asking if he's the one who. Then Digger's like, wait, what's the big deal if it actually turns out to be in? Seriously, who does this kid think he is? The boy reaches out and snatches Diva's coat. Wei asks the guy if he even realizes what he's done, and if he forgot that the people in the forest are human beings too. The guy decks that creepy suit and sends him crashing right into the meat table, sending everything crashing straight to the floor. Everyone else just stands there watching as Isekai'D storms over, looking totally pissed off. The kid jumps right back up and grabs hold. Steve is rocking that fur coat once again. He demands that the guy apologize to every single member of the Ru clan. He slams the suit to the ground one more time. This was the moment that kick finally landed. Eiffel calls out to him, sounding super worried, but it's already too late. Donda holds the boy back, leaving the kid totally confused by what he's doing. The clan leader tells the kid to back off and says he's got this. David demands to know who this kid is and tells him he better apologize right now. Dotna claims he's a guest of the clan, but the man just fires right back. This just gives him even more of a reason to say sorry. Dan is totally out of patience and warns him that if he says one more word, it's officially war between the Sun clan and the Ru clan. Diga is totally caught off guard by this. He tells Medit to give the Cuba back, and the guy starts whining because he worked way too hard to hunt it down. But he follows through and does exactly what he was told. Eiffel shouts out to get Asudo's attention. He's trying to save all that meat for the big party, so Rudo asks if the food on the other table is actually enough. The rest of the group helps hunt for more meat and checks with the firekeeper, who tells them it's officially good to go. Asuda steps up with total confidence, promising to replace the meat and make sure everyone's hard work wasn't for nothing. He's watching every single move, feeling super proud of the kid. Donna completely shocks her by bringing up Asuda out of nowhere. He points out the kid was already banged up with a twisted ankle or something and says he'll check on him in a bit. The question totally catches her off guard, and after looking a bit unsure, she admits the whole thing was her fault. Donda says things would have been a total disaster if she talked to Diga because she and the Sun clan have major beef, but the guy points out that even though Asuda isn't a... Now she's left wondering what that guy's deal actually is. She catches up with Asuda, says sorry for being late, and asks how she can help out. Then you just ask them to clean up all that Jiba fur that's literally all over the place. He kicks things off by telling the women they're making a totally new dish called Jiba and poitin soup. He also tells them to just pile on the fried food, cut back on the grilled meat, and then he drops one last detail. They're about to whip up a brand new soup using some taraba crab. Rena gets super hyped when she hears what they're actually using. Everyone was busy getting everything ready for the massive feast. Everything was going totally smooth. They built a massive tower decked out in flowers just for the big ceremony. And just like that, the massive wedding feast finally kicks off. Asuda shows off a pot of food and reveals it's the brand new dish they made for the big banquet. Mina sees the red color and asks if it's Juppa soup, while Riene catches the scent of taraba. Suddenly, he remembered exactly what the girl told him about that vegetable. It turns out charaba is basically just like a pumpkin or a tomato, and blended it all up into a total mush. He tossed the leftover fruit into the tomato soup and made a bunch of colorful dishes to make the whole table pop for the ceremony. The kid steps up and gets ready to fire off his serve. Dan's starving and begs for some roasted meat, making Masuda realize he definitely should have fed him more earlier. He serves Grandma Juba some taraba soup, and she's just happy it's soft enough for her bad teeth, right as Eiffel calls out that the ceremony is finally starting. The bride and groom are rocking their wedding outfits, and Suede is totally stunned by how gorgeous they look glowing in the sunset and the fire. He says he actually feels pretty bad for the dad. He's actually low-key happy he died, and Ifa is just like, wait, what are you even talking about? She tells everyone that the ceremony is finally wrapping up, and the bride and groom are gonna walk right past them one more time. Gazarin and his bride walk past with huge smiles, and seeing them so happy makes Asuda feel totally awesome. He's just praying this massive feast is enough to keep everyone happy. Ifra tells him the banquet is finally starting and orders him to stay put, leaving him totally confused as he asks what she's actually planning to do. She tells him she's gotta go change her clothes real quick. And now he's totally losing his cool and blushing like crazy. Ifun catches his reaction and asks if he wants his eyes ripped out, telling him to quit stalling and get to the banquet already. Right then, Asuna looks around and spots a few other girls in the mix. Just then, Dan calls him over and tells him to bring out more grilled meat. She takes this chance to finally thank the guy for everything. Everyone is totally loving every bite of the firekeeper's cooking. Asuda gives props to the whole crew, saying they only pulled off this epic feast because everyone pitched in to help. Dana tells him to bring out 5 more pieces of meat. The meat is sizzling on the grill, and he's totally ready to dig in. He's putting them on the plate just as someone walks right by him. That's when it hits him, it's actually Ifa. He asks her what's wrong and then notices she's let her hair down. Plus, she's rocking a dress covered in flowers, which is a huge change from her usual style. Ifa asks if it's actually a problem for her to just wear her hair down. He just stands there with his mouth open saying it's totally fine, but in his head, he knows the real disaster is that outfit. Dan starts screaming at his muse because she's totally losing her spark. He just stood there in a suit made of laves and didn't say another word to her. He's thinking that the usual look is fire, but this new outfit hits totally different. The kid hands over the meat and makes a quick comment about the guy's wild outfit. Dan tells the girls they're lucky to wear those dresses for the feast, since they're basically supposed to be the flowers of the party. It's not just IFOD either, because all the other girls are rocking the exact same look. Asuda asks if they're supposed to be flowers, and Dan has to break it down for him one more time. It's all about getting married and building a brand new family together. He says it's super important for the forest people to join the party, and even tells the suitor to just let loose and have a good time. The forest people are throwing a huge wedding, so everyone is gathered around this massive bonfire. And just like that, the ceremony wraps up. On a bright sunny day, Eifer flashes a smile and tells everyone it's finally time to head home. That's when the huntress finally speaks up to ask. They're thinking about asking the Ru clan to stay one more day, but he shuts it down because he's stressed about their food running out and says they need to go shopping ASAP. Ifra says that's the only thing he's being careful about. Then he asks her if she seriously thinks that's the only thing he cares about. Asuda says the payment is all good and promises to be the best firekeeper the Faklan have ever seen, while Ifa just nods along with total pride. While they're walking, a girl asks if he's actually sure about going on this shopping trip. They've got to cross that bridge one more time, and trust me, they are absolutely dreading it. They totally forgot about that until they suddenly spotted someone walking right past. He's shaking on the bridge, and the look on his face is pure terror. The kid gets this weird feeling that he's definitely seen this guy's face before. He accidentally steps right on a loose plank. He reaches out and snags the rope just in time. IFRES says they're gonna help him out, but they're actually totally faking it. The guy warns them to go one at a time, or the whole bridge is gonna snap. They finally made it back to the house and were totally safe. Now Asuda is really starting to wonder what's going on, wondering what she's actually gonna do in this crazy spot. This guy is super hyped and wants to check out every single corner of the house. He's asking what kind of crazy material they used for the F. He's down on the floor and thinks the wall looks totally insane. Rewind back a few hours to when they actually saved their lives. After saving the guy from a nasty fall, you give them a quick thanks for the assist. Ifa flashes a big smile and asks him what he's even doing there. The guy just tells them he's heading into the forest to go camping. She straight up tells the guy chasing her that it's probably for the best. She tells them it's time to head home, and he's totally down for it. They're just walking along when they realize they've got a tail, and it's honestly starting to get on their nerves. Ifa asks why this guy is even chasing them. He says they're the forest people who caused that huge scene in the city, and now he's super curious about them. And she is totally not happy about that. She's so fed up that she tells him to get out of her face. Asuda asks what the guy is even doing there, and she explains he's been secretly tailing them this whole time while staying out of sight. He's tearing the whole house apart and starts asking about the furnace. This guy in a suit explains the cooking, and now the man is super curious about the dishes. The kid is super hyped to talk about his passion and says he usually whips up meals using Jiba meat. The guy is totally shocked but super hyped, and he immediately asks to try a bite of that meat. I walked away feeling totally confused by what they just asked me to do. That made her absolutely hate him right then and there. She tells her suitor to give the guy some grilled meat so he'll totally change his mind. He tries to explain that he's not just some random dude. His name is Kamil Yoshu, and yeah, Gord, he's totally serious. Asuda asks what that even means, and he explains that his whole job is basically being a bodyguard for VIPs on their travels. As he shatters into pieces, he says the forest people are actually from the south, and he's super interested in them, adding that anyone who doesn't mess with gods is called. Asuda starts prepping the Juba meat, and the guy is definitely curious about what he's up to. When the food is finally ready, the guy is totally blown away and says it's a massive honor for a Westerner like him, but the kid just tells him to hurry up and eat before it gets cold. He used an extra hand to pull it off. It starts munching on the meat, while Ifa watches the whole thing go down. He stops dead in his tracks, and then the girl steps up. He realizes everything is going down exactly like he expected. Typical guy from the capital, he definitely hated every second of it. But he totally shocks everyone by telling them the meat is actually delicious. He's never tasted anything like this before, so he actually asks the clam to keep their delicious meat a secret just between them. Ifa's looking super serious, and Asuda's starting to think she's actually getting annoyed. Then the girl just looks at him and asks if that's seriously all he's got. She stands right up and tells him he hasn't even tasted the absolute best part of the Jiba meat yet. And now Yoshu is really starting to wonder what's going on. She flashes a big grin and tells them this dish is called a hamburger. Now the guy was dying to give it a shot. But then it hits her, she actually just wants to eat it all herself. While this gunman starts absolutely popping off, the guy starts explaining his wild journey and the real reason he's doing all this. He kept those merchants from the east safe until they finally reached the kingdom. He tells them that they were actually planning to do it while they were on the road. They walked right past the forest people's camp and decided to go check things out. Ifa wraps up the story by saying that's when he fell off the bridge, and even though the girl gets why they're here, she's still not letting anyone from the stone capital inside. He says he totally gets it, talk is cheap, and trust is something you actually have to earn. Asuna walks in with the plates, says sorry for the interruption, and shouts that the burgers are finally ready. He says he was totally rushed, so he only managed to whip up a tiny bit of poutine and some pan-fried veggies. Drooling like crazy, the guy asks which one's the burger and what all the other food is. Then this annoying little guy just tells him to quit asking questions and stuff his face. Asuda finishes up the prayers and tells everyone it's finally time to dig in. The second he got a taste of it, the guy's eyes were completely mangled, looking just like raw hamburger meat. It just kept getting whiter, and honestly, it was starting to freak them both out. Ifa asks what he did, but he immediately gets defensive and tells her to stop acting like he's the bad guy. Out of nowhere, this dude just starts. He flops onto the ground, crying even harder because it's so soft and tastes so good he can't believe it's actually Jiba. Both of them were completely stunned and couldn't even say a word. Yoshu knows the stone capital's food inside and out, so he's totally shocked that this kid pulled off such an insane dish. He tries out the dry point technique, but he totally fails and just draws an ass. If that thing is seriously just a potato. He finally snaps out of it, apologizes for getting way too hyped, and asks if the forest people eat this every day, but Asuda says he isn't actually sure. Iface jumps into the conversation and says you can't really talk trash about the guy who brought these methods to the table. Asuda feels totally awkward for causing the scene, and then the guy asks if he's even one of the forest people since he looks nothing like them. The boy whispers, asking what he's even supposed to say, and she tells him to just wing it and say whatever pops into his head. He's shaking like crazy, telling them he's from Japan and just randomly appeared right at the edge of the forest. This guy is absolutely fuming right now. He straight up asks the boy if he's an immigrant. Ifat tells Yoshu it doesn't matter where the kid came from, because the food is gonna taste the same either way. He just goes totally quiet for a few seconds. He thinks for a second and then totally agrees. Ifat tells everyone to keep eating and shocks Suda by saying those burgers weren't enough, but the boy says he made a ton of them, so Yoshu takes the chance to ask for more poutine too. They finally say their goodbyes and head their separate ways. The guy says he's super thankful for the warm welcome and is stoked to finally know his way around the forest. Afer is totally happy with that, and Asuda just tells the guy he better watch his step on the bridge. Kamua Yoshu says peace out to the two of them and takes off. Ifra says the guy is basically a human hurricane, and the boy totally agrees as he remembers his insane strength. They suggested he should totally open up a stall in the city of Shakuba. The guy makes the offer one more time right before he suddenly snaps awake. I'm just gonna ask then, since you clearly can't wait another second. He's just munching on some jerky, telling them he can't do a thing because he was way too freaked out. She asked him if he had that dream where he was crossing the bridge. He says he had a nightmare where Kamua Yoshu was hunting him down. That felt super sketchy, He says it's legit terrifying and asks if you're actually ready for this. He's back to obsessing over that stone capital again. He takes the chance to double-check and says he was thinking about the same thing. The kid thinks it's a total joke to open a shop in the stone capital, but Ifer asks if it's actually a genius move. Out of nowhere, Asuda drops a bombshell and says it's actually the left. Last time they visited, she called everyone there a total jerk, but now she's making excuses while he asks if she just secretly hates the place. Ifra says it's not exactly hate, but they're totally obsessed with it. Totally clueless, the guy starts begging and asks if it's just about the money, but she just asks if he forgot how things went down the other day. She tells them they can actually use Jiba tusks to buy all the ingredients they need. And that's when he finally realizes what she's really all about. So she tells him that for now, the only loot they can actually sell are those Jiba tusks. She gets all hyped up and tells Asuda that selling Jiba meat is a genius move since they can trade it, eat burgers, and score a ton of other perks too. The boy notices she's actually down for the plan, so she quickly defends herself by saying that more meat will make them all rich. She also says people can just buy points now instead of hunting for tusks, which is going to keep a lot of people from starving to death. Asuda realizes the vibe got way too heavy and starts apologizing. He says he's heading out to get some straight answers from the others. Finally, Korn and Redim had one last thing to tell him. It didn't change a thing, even if those snobs in the capital treated them like total trash. Eiffel calls out to the boys. He's hurting like crazy and just begs to go to the. They've already made it to the capital. He asks if they'll find Yoshu at the inn, but the girl says he'd only be there if he actually managed to cross the bridge. Once they hit the city, Ifa tells him to check out all the people walking around. He notices that even though everyone looks totally different, they all have the exact same annoyed look on their faces. He sees some people totally ignoring him and starts wondering if they're only acting like that because of their race. He's stressing that selling chips and meat might be a bad move, and since everyone is just ignoring him, he knows things are looking sketchy, especially with a forest dweller running a stall there. Then out of nowhere, she actually finds it. He asks if she's talking about a forest bowler's stall, but she's totally lost and asks what he's even talking about. She tells them she finally tracked down the exact spot where Yoshu Sehibai is staying. He's trying to bolt the very second he gets a chance. He asks to head home, but Ifa yanks him back, telling him the whole trip would be a waste since she knows he'll just sit around and do nothing if he leaves. He heads straight inside the building. Suddenly, he's stopped by this kid who. He asks if this guy is actually there to try and marry her. Totally confused, the firekeeper asks him who he's supposed to be. The kid introduces himself as Lido, and it turns out he's actually Yoshu's student. Asuda feels totally bad for the kid, since he has no clue what's even going on. Lito tells them to head upstairs to meet his master, but the kid points out that the guy didn't even show his face after inviting them over. So he's taking them straight back to his room. Lado says he totally thought he was already awake in a dream. He apologizes for the mess, but when Asuda tries to leave for some sleep, Ifa straight up shoves him. They walk into the room and find the guy lying on the table in a totally bizarre pose. Asuda is freaking out thinking the guy is done for, but Ifai thinks his pose looks totally epic. The kid tries to wake Camilo up, but first he has to knock this guy right off her. He headed straight over to wake the guy up. And this is the person he's calling for. And there's that old man back at it again. Asuda asks if they can finally get out of there, but Kimula totally caught him off guard, who says they're even here to talk business. This totally leaves Suda scratching his head. The guy explains that if you want to open a shop in the city, you've gotta pay rent. He says it's worth 10 Kimu meat buns, which is basically 10 red copper coins, and he's taking a 10% cut, but the kid is totally distracted by the thought of those buns. Then the guy just asks him straight up if he actually ate them. The kid barely says a word, so Kamua points out their stall nearby, bragging about how famous their stuff is and telling Asuda that Jivamit is the perfect rival to take them on. But the kid is low-key stressing, wondering if anyone will actually buy meat like that. The guy's a professional taster, so he's totally sure everyone else is gonna love it. Asuda's not really buying it though, especially since the guy literally burst into tears after eating Jiba. Lito asks the firekeeper if there's a problem, but wait until you see what Suda is reading. He's racking his brain because he knows he's heard a name just like Cameo somewhere before. He asks Ifa if he can talk to someone from the forest people, and she's totally down for it. Now Cammy gets the hint that the whole proposal is still just hanging there. Dan calls out that it's finally almost time to eat, and asks Suda what he's so desperate to talk about. The kid says he's actually just looking for his honest take. And once again, the guy starts yapping about dinner. Just as the kid finishes his super emotional and happy speech, Dan asks if Asuda King would actually want him to try some new grilled meat. So you're seriously trying to say it's not? The poor kid is totally tripping over his words and can't get anything out right. Dan's expression hit him like a blinding beam of light. Suda is the one whipping up dinner, and then Nabis says it's the exact same recipe for the grilled meat. Now the kid is seriously questioning why he even showed up. While they're eating, a fan nudges the kid, and he finally notices the chief is starting to get super annoyed. Gadron finally asks Asuda if he's still stressing over that talk they had the other day, and he's totally down for it because he really wants to hear Dan's take on the whole thing. The chief says selling this meat in the city is like having sharp weapons, and since it's not blessed by the forest, it's not against the rules at all. But he's low-key stressing that everyone is gonna hate his cooking. Dan mumbles through a mouthful of meat that the whole thing is just totally ridiculous. It's honestly wild that anyone wouldn't realize just how insanely good this food is. To finish things off, Gazarin asks if they should just turn the rest of the talk into a Monday Fat Clan. It's getting super late, so the two of them crash in a room the clan set up for them. This student is totally losing his mind because there's only one bed, and she asks if it's really a big deal to share it since they're from the same clan anyway. I-5 steps forward and thanks them for the room, even with their son coming over for a visit. The girl feels the carpet and brags about how soft it is, while Asuna is just baffled that she's even thinking about that right now. She's already chilling on the bed and tells him to just lay down, asking if he's really gonna pass up on how soft it is. Asuna gets all red in the face and asks him if he's actually for real. He definitely needs to ask for a different bed. She says he loves being comfy, but he's gotta quit it since this isn't even their house. He tries to speak up and tell them they've got it all wrong. But Ifak just snaps at him to quit stalling and lay down already. Maisuda turns his back to Ifa, his whole body locking up as he gets super tense. He can totally feel that she's super close now. She calls out to him, and that just makes him freak out even more. I straight up asked him if he'd finally made his choice. Everyone's waiting to see if he's actually gonna open his stall in the big trade city. She yanks him around to look her right in the eye. First off, he says he doesn't even have enough gear to get his shop running. Now she's dying to find out what happens next. He tells her this isn't just his problem anymore, but he's gonna need some cash and her okay to handle it. She tells him he's had her okay since the very start, and even if he doesn't realize it, he's really just hunting for an excuse not to go. Ifer admits that deep down, he doesn't even want to run his own shop, which totally catches the kid off guard. Then she straight up tells them she's already got a favorite. She's straight up begging and pleading for him to just let her. They treated him like he was straight up family. He gets a little shy and starts blushing the second he hears that. And just like that, Afa reaches out and touches his face. He holds her hand while keeping a close eye on everything. You could see every single detail of her body. Her eyes are totally glowing with excitement. Zuner starts strutting right across the room like he owns the place. He heads over to the door and swings it wide open. He finally lets out a long, heavy breath. He's totally hyped, and Afa's dying to know what's got him acting like this. With a big grin, he says he's finally made up his mind and is opening the stall. Alpha just nods and says she totally gets it. And get this, he's actually about to meet up with Kamua Yashio. They're heading deep into the woods, and the hunt is finally on. He points out they're totally off the path to the city. The boy thinks they're totally lost, so Asuda tells him they should just head home and figure out what they're gonna sell. Ifra doesn't say another single word to him. Back at the house, this dude tries to pull a sneaky move. So now they've got to figure out what to do with all that Jiba meat, and obviously, the girl says this is exactly how it's supposed to go. He tries to argue, but she shuts him down right away. They're totally dead set on getting burgers and won't take no for an answer. Now his only move is to get them ready for the fight. Iface looks at the food and points out that it's way smaller than usual and she asks if she can finally dig in. She's totally hyped to go grab the wooden spoon, but Usura stops her right there to ask a question. He tells her to hold up, explaining that if they open a stall now, he won't have enough spoons and plates for everyone. She asks what she's supposed to do next, and he just tells her to dig in. She's doing it all with her bare hands. She thinks it's super weird at first, so she reaches down to grab it. She can feel that the meat is straight up burning hot. He starts casually tossing it back and forth between his hands like it's nothing. LL make it punchier. Suda is getting really nervous about this, so he suggests a maybe. Final choice, Suda is totally stressed out by this. Maybe a big burger is just way too much for her to handle. But she says no way and just chucks it. She just shoves the meat straight into her mouth. The meat is still steaming hot, and the juices are already starting to drip. Then the kid speaks up and suggests the name Humbert. Asuda taps the spot and suddenly Mullen. A genius idea hits him, and he realizes it'd be way easier to eat if he just slapped that Kimyu onto some bread. He makes a total mess wrapping the meat in dough at the drive point, and when the girl asks if he's doing it on purpose, he just promises to clean it up. She hands over the meat wrapped in poitin and tells her she's gotta try it. I'm the one making the choice. He's super nervous as he asks her what she actually thought. She's a bit let down, saying that while it's cool the juice doesn't spill, the pointin is way too tough and would be way better if she just ate them separately. Asuda's totally blown away by how real she's being, so he stops to thank her for. Then he complains there wasn't nearly enough sauce, and the texture was just straight-up trash. He ties a cloth around his head and says he's about to cook up some wild new ideas with the ingredients he's got. The huntress totally goes along with it while scarfing down the rest of that meat. A little while later, he says he's finally done, and I just play it cool. She looks at it and straight up asks if she can eat it. He's finally getting a piece of that total jerk. She takes a bite and looks totally happy, making it super obvious what she's thinking. Ayafra claims this is the secret to taking down Kamua Yoshu, but he's honestly just confused about what she means. Kamua asks if the sample he's planning to sell is actually in the bag. His face is totally red as he barks at him to get that food out fast. Asuda drops the act and tells Kamua he's being totally gross, but the guy just laughs it off as a joke and asks to see the food. He grabs the box where it's kept and hands it over. He hands it over, and Kamua is shocked to feel it's still warm. He snatched the burger, looking totally shocked as he asked if this is the same jibami he went up against before. But then he looks closer and realizes it's actually red. Usui explains he cooked the meat in tarapa sauce and sandwiched it between Tino and Area to give it that perfect texture. The two of them lock eyes, and you can just feel the tension. Then Kamio finally digs in and takes a bite of the meat. He's losing it over the taste, just like he does every single time he eats it. He even offered up some Toledo for them to try out. The kid is totally stoked, saying that crispy crunch and juicy meat taste amazing with the sauce. Asuna just thanks them for loving his new dish that's totally inspired by an American hamburger. Kanua's super curious and asks what they're gonna call this food. He's totally hyped up now and decides his new name is gonna be the Jiba Burger. So then he asks if he can actually use that to run his own stall. The guy starts talking about the person who runs the stall. Kim Yuen lets him borrow one that totally blows his mind, and he's shocked it was actually that easy to get. Asuda says they need to set the prices, but Kamua just tells him he's in charge and can run the shop however he wants. The guy says he opens the shop whenever he feels like it. He just gives the word, and the young cook is already thanking him. Masuda is totally stoked now that everyone is hyped about how good his burger tastes. But he's low-key stressing because Cuba meat is becoming way too popular. He catches Camuo's reaction and realizes this guy is actually super dangerous. Everyone's freaking out, and back in the forest, Isekai'D is just sitting outside. Ever since they walked out of that inn, he's been totally stuck in his own head. He's just trying to figure out the perfect price to charge for those Jiba burgers. He's thinking about selling them for just 2 red copper coins, which is the exact same price as a Kimyu meat bun. Eiffel stays quiet and lets him keep on talking. He's using the same ingredients plus Tino, Tarapa, and Kigo, and Fafel says if they make 20 a day at 65 coins each, and after paying for the spot and he's got a stall for 10 days while crunching the numbers on all those ingredients. It only costs about 65 cents, so he realizes they're definitely gonna make a profit. He pocketed a quick one, 35 red copper coins, because he was way too impatient to wait around. Ifa asks what he's getting at, and he breaks down exactly how much they'll make from the sale. If they can sell 60 burgers in just 10 days, they're totally safe from going broke. Rifle just collapses to the floor, his head totally spinning from all this madness. He asks if they seriously have to sell 60 burgers in just 10 days. Asuda gets super worried and asks if she's okay or if he messed up the math, but she tells him everything is totally fine. She throws on her fur coat and reminds him she's the boss of the family with a job to do, so he's gotta start making his own moves. Asuna gets super curious and asks the girl exactly where they're headed. She tells them she's heading out to start the hunt. He says she's been acting like this nonstop lately. They're helping him with the stall, so he finally realizes that if Ifa stops, he's gonna have to handle everything by himself. Asuna realizes he's going to be doing it all, the cooking, the serving, and even moving all the gear. He's feeling pretty bummed out, so Afa asks him what's going on. He calls her a hunter, and she's actually pretty annoyed by that. Turns out the Ru clan is actually eyeing that stall, so he needs to go talk to them right now. Asuda's just lying there on the floor as the door slowly shuts, totally freaking out about having to talk to the Rucklin. Ine pops out after eavesdropping to confirm the stall rumors are 100% real, so Asuda immediately tries to recruit her for sales, but she won't join until she knows exactly what they're planning to sell. Asuda tells her that instead of just talking, it's way better if he just shows her what's up. She eyes the table full of ingredients and the boy, wondering what he's up to. He tells them he's about to shift into high gear and go all out. Toss it into the potion and get it baking. He shows them exactly how it's done by tossing it right into the bowl. He says that's the spot where they're gonna get all the burger ingredients ready. Judas starts whipping up the tarapa sauce, blanching and peeling the ingredients before draining the water and adding a splash of fruit wine. He stirs the pot and tells them he's adding salt and herbs to give it some real flavor while it cooks. And the second that tarpa starts getting all soft, the sauce is finally good to go, and he gives the order to keep those burgers nice and small. They fit her hand perfectly, and Vina is totally blown away. Then he tells them to slice Tino into strips and spread them all over that massive pointin'. Just slap that burger on top and drench the whole thing in sauce. He explains you just need to drop one last point on top to finish the burger, and boom, the lesson is officially over. She was super confused and asked if the lesson was actually over, but Asuda just told her to give it a shot. She finally takes that first big bite, and he just starts chomping away like it's nothing. She gulps and her face instantly fills with total surprise. Venus is totally hyped because the landing spot is super soft and the Jiba is the perfect size. Asuda explains that the secret to this super soft texture is all thanks to the grated Jigo. He's honestly so stoked to hear what she thinks. He points to the food on the table and says he's got every single ingredient plus all the gear they need. Next time they're gonna need some wood for the fire, and he just calmly asks if they can even carry all that stuff. Vina asks why they can't just do it if that's the only thing stopping them. And that's when he remembers that in this world, he's honestly a total weakling. She asks what's wrong, but he just stays totally silent. He says that in 3 days, he's taking everything to the capital to rent a stall, so he tells Vina to show up tomorrow. Eiffel finally shows up late at night and asks the kid if he's made any progress, and Asuda tells her he's got it all handled. He totally forgot he's not in Japan anymore, so he wasn't even worried about getting robbed or dealing with crazy thugs. Iface is looking totally sure of himself as he says that. With her out hunting and him running the stalls, they're basically an unstoppable duo, and that thought totally hypes him up. He accepts the challenge, feeling totally sure he'll crush it since he's a member of the Facklin. Gage sends the pass, and Asuda is standing there with his stuff, just dying for Vina to finally show up. Suddenly, her voice rings out as she makes her big entrance. The guy is seriously impressed and finally starts to relax, thanking her for showing up. She shows up in a totally different outfit and asks him if he's been waiting long. Asuda notices something is off and asks her what the deal is with her clothes. Vienna says forest girls have to stay covered in the capital, and the boy realizes that even though she's hidden, it actually feels way more dangerous now. Vina suddenly remembers something and mentions that when she talked about going to the shop, someone else actually wanted to tag along. The suit is totally stunned to see Rudo, and the kid just asks if they have a problem with him being their bodyguard. Vina starts messing with him, asking if he only showed up because he heard a suitor is opening a shop. Getting all defensive, he snaps that he only showed up to help because he had nothing better to do. Rudo also warns that if Asuda stays by himself, he's going to get jumped just for being a poor, easy target. He's a little salty about being called broke, but this nerd isn't backing down. Asuda's totally down with that and asks the hunter to help him lug all those supplies around. Now they're heading straight for the stone capital to get their plan moving. They're charging down the path and flying right over the bridge. Rudo and Vina look totally fine, acting like that whole crazy situation never even happened. The firekeeper is totally wiped out and just collapses straight to the ground. She's totally fine, and she tells them both they need to hit up the commuter shop to grab a tent. He's totally shocked when he spots the tent, and Rudo checks in to see if he's doing okay. He says he's gonna haul the tent over to the spot they picked out. Looking at everything, he starts wondering if he actually died and just woke up in some totally random world. He still remembers his dad, even if he can't actually talk to him anymore. Asuda brags that it's still awesome even though it's tiny. He finally did it. He's got his very own shop. Getting hyped up again, the kid tells Rudo to grab all his gear and get ready for the perfect opening. As they haul the tent along, the city people are just staring, wondering if these forest folks are seriously trying to open a shop. Now your suit is gonna feel totally weird and uncomfortable. Fawful finally notices everyone is staring at him, and he realizes it's because it's super weird for a guy like him to actually start a shop. The Moys are totally shocked that their new spot is way off the main road and hidden from all the other shops. Asuda gives the word for everyone to start getting everything ready. If it gets snatched, the boy and his buddy are just stuck watching the whole thing go down. People can say whatever they want, but he's locked in and ready to crush this challenge. Asuda kicks things off by organizing the wooden boards, telling Rudo to haul 5 or 6 to the back, while Vina makes sure the burger and grist stay totally separate. While he's asking for the pot, he says a box would be awesome and asks if he can borrow one. Finally, the shop is all set up, and it looks totally amazing. Asuda is super stoked and gives them both a massive thank you. He looks at his shop with a huge grin, thinking it's finally perfect. This win isn't just for him, because he never would have pulled it off without Ifa and the rest of the crew. But nobody shows up, and he's starting to get a really bad feeling about this. He thinks someone put out an ad, but Vina reminds him about the instructions they were given. It's totally banned, but the second he starts prepping those burgers, everything kicks off. Vina zeroed in and focused all her power on that one specific spot. Suddenly, a guy walks up, and Masuda gets super hyped because he thinks he's finally found a customer. He looks like a normal customer, but then he just turns his back, and that really catches the guy off guard. The kid was super suspicious, but honestly, he just felt kind of let down. This student is looking around for the shopkeepers, but he just realized he totally messed up. He thinks even Rudo looks totally bored while standing guard. He's starting to freak out because if he doesn't hit his goal in 10 days, he's in serious trouble. At this rate, that firehouse is totally gonna get wrecked. He wasn't about to let that go down, so he stepped up and asked. He hits up Vina to grab the rest of the ingredients. As it starts to spread, he just draws another one. Suddenly, all eyes were on the boys. He's so locked in that he doesn't notice a single thing until Vina finally calls his name. A whole crowd is gathered around the stall, and he's right there in the middle of them. It's honestly wild that they got lured in just by the smell. But then one of them speaks up and says it's actually Jiba meat. A few people actually bailaed, saying they thought it was gonna be way different. They tell him they're not buying it, leaving the poor kid feeling totally crushed. He figured it didn't really matter how they served it up. The forest folk are the only ones who actually vibe with Jiba meat. Vina hits him up again, and this time she sounds way more hyped than before. These hooded dudes show up asking for Jiba, and Asuda gives them the price while keeping a super close eye on the mysterious group. They always move in packs and wear some seriously sketchy outfits. He hands the meat over to the guy, totally wondering if he's actually gonna eat it. He takes a huge bite of the Jiba burger while the other guy just watches him. These morphid guys are all piling together to form a massive suit of armor. He realizes they aren't Xenos people, but he has no clue who these guys actually are. He's got his eyes glued on his very first customer, who ends up devouring every single bite of that burger. The kid is totally locked in while chatting with his friend, standing right there next to him. He's totally clueless about why they're reacting this way. The guy totally shocks him by asking for 7 more plates. He's still totally frozen, but Vina is the one who finally catches his eye. The guys demand 7 more, and the kid finally realizes they were just testing him this whole time. He's slinging burgers for 14 red copper coins each. Vienna is celebrating big time after selling 8 burgers. Suda is totally hyped up, even though he has no clue what's actually happening. What everyone really thought about his cooking. He was killing it, selling 8 out of every 10 things he tried. Suggy steps up and says he's the one taking charge of the cell. Everything is going down today, but the clock just keeps on ticking. And literally nobody else shows up. Vienna points out that even though it's the middle of the lunch rush, literally no one else has shown up. The second it spots those last 2 burgers, he's starting to realize that making a sale is going to be way harder than he thought. Out of nowhere, Lido pops up, and Asuda points out how rare it is to see him without Cameo around. The boy tells them his master is way too busy to be bothered right now. So he had no choice but to show up totally solo. The firekeeper asks him straight up what he's doing there. Leto thinks the whole thing is a total letdown until he suddenly remembers his mask. Gita Berger is straight up sobbing in bed, completely buried under a massive pile of work. He grabs the items from his pouch and straight up asks what the hell is going on. Isuda is super hyped about the food because he only needs to sell one more to be done. But then they totally catch him off guard by asking for one more. The firekeeper is left totally stunned, thinking this kid is a literal angel, and that's when the show really kicks off. The shop actually makes it through its very first day in one piece. Back in the forest, Asuda thanks the group for the backup, and Venus tells him not to sweat it because she's always got his back. He slowly creaks the door open and sneaks inside the house. He heads right back over to Afa while she's just sitting there. She flashes a grin and tells him he's seriously fast. He figures he's out of luck since the day is already over. She asks if he really sold all 10, and the boy gives her his answer. They actually pulled it off, and while Afer is trying to figure out how, Asuda realizes he never would have made it without Kamua's help. He asks if those dudes in the white cloaks are actually from the north. She says those people are probably just from North Shumu checking out the shops, and then she asks if something went down. Asuda says they literally just showed up, grabbed some burgers, and dipped immediately. She thinks the story is actually super cool, which leaves him totally lost. Then she breaks it down and says the Shimas don't actually have any beef with Jabami. That was probably her first time, you dummy, and now she's already making her move. Being a forest girl, she totally gets how this thing changed the way some people act. They check out the food, and she says it looks totally awesome. This makes the suit totally stoked, and he makes sure to give her a huge thank you. She asks why he's even thanking her, but he just brushes it off and says he's gonna go start on dinner. But the real chaos kicked off the next day right as the rain started pouring down. They're all scrambling to protect their gear, and Mina mentions how crazy sunny it was when they first showed up, while some suitor was just praying the heat would go away fast. He's trying to hope the Shima people won't show up, but he just can't shake the feeling they're coming. Kamua pops up and asks if he's waiting for Liko again, just like yesterday. The suitor admits he wasn't even thinking about that, so the guy jokes that the boy was probably thinking of him instead, but the firekeeper shuts that down immediately. This guy just straight up orders 3 burgers. Now Asuda is dying to find out who else is trying to get in on the action. But Kama says he gets 2, and Leto only gets 1. Asuda's a little bummed out, but honestly, he should have seen that coming. He sells those 3 burgers and scores 6 red copper coins for them. He shoved it right in with the stuff he just bought. The guy complains about how much he hates the pouring rain, and the suit next to him totally agrees. In a totally different spot, the disaster had already gone down. I crash onto the ground and realize I've totally failed. She's totally out cold while the rain just soaks her. Back in the city, the rain is still pouring down, and it's not letting up at all. Suda says he hasn't spotted a single soul. He puts out the fire and tells everyone they're shutting the shop down. Vina's totally stressed out because they only managed to sell 3. He's clearly hurting, but he tells them they have to know when it's time to head home, just as Rudo shows up to ask if he's really leaving. She says sorry for totally forgetting him and making him carry all the heavy stuff, but Rudo doesn't care about that. He's just worried about crossing the mountain while it's wet and super. The hunter keeps nagging Asuda to stay alert while the firekeeper lines them up, putting Asuda in the lead, Vina in the middle, and Rudo at the very back. The hunter asks if he knows what happens when someone slips, but Asuda thinks falling together is way better than going down alone. He backs Rudo up and swears he's gonna give it his all. He was already walking away. They're dreaming about being back home as he steps right into a. Just look at how massive his foot is. He's never seen a single footprint that could actually freak him out. He called Ruro over to where he was standing. The guy walks over and tells them that someone. One of them hits the dirt and asks what he's supposed to do now. Rudo tells them to stay put while he goes to check it out, and the firekeeper is just praying that nothing has gone horribly wrong. Lady Yon Hunter gets taken down, and things get crazy right away. Right away, they spot someone collapsed on the ground and shouting for help. The second you drop everything and walk over like you're totally chill. The firekeeper completely freezes in fear, already picturing the terrifying reason he's being called out. Asuda heads over to find Eiffel collapsed on the ground, and Rudo says she probably just passed out. The firekeeper reaches out and snatches up A5. The young hunter begged him to wait for the villagers to show up, but he just turned away. There's no way he's leaving her behind. Then he turned to Rudo and begged him to help carry his family back home. Seeing the struggle, the young hunter jumps in to help him haul I-5 up. She's telling him he better hold onto her tight and not let go. They ask Vina to jump in and help them out. They finally made it to the house where the injured group was waiting. The parole deal is finally set, and Asuda makes sure to thank them. He tells them he totally owes them a huge favor. Rudo tries to lighten the vibe by asking for food, but Vina just yells at him to start taking care of himself. Now you're all alone, and your only mission is to keep Ifa safe. She starts by peeling off her soaking wet footwear. He throws on a fur coat and sparks up a fire. He helps her dry off and gets the bed all ready for her. He looks right into her eyes and asks if she's doing okay. She just asks how she ended up back home, and he tells her she was soaking wet and totally passed out in the woods. Asuna keeps asking her questions, checking to see if she's in any pain or if she's feeling super cold. The only word she can even say is rain, like she's desperately trying to remember what went down. Asuda's totally worried and asks if she's in pain, and even though she says she's fine, he makes her lie down under some tuba pelts as her body starts feeling super heavy. Asuda stirs the pot while keeping his eyes on her, telling her the soup is almost ready and she just needs to hang on a bit longer. She can feel her right shoulder pop right out of its socket. He walks over with the soup and asks her if she can actually eat it. She asked if he could feed her, and he was totally down for it. But he definitely thinks this whole request is super weird. She doesn't say another word and just sits straight up. Masuda helps her eat, but he's definitely feeling the nerves kick in. He's convinced he's just looking out for her, and that's literally it. Once they finished the soup, she asked him to put some medicine on her shoulder, leaving him totally shook. She apologizes and says she totally should have just grabbed the ointment herself. He stands up and heads over to grab it. He just hands it right over to him. His hands are shaking like crazy as he puts the medicine on her shoulder. Suda tries to look away, wondering why he's suddenly catching all these feelings. She looks like she's in total pain, so the guy gets super worried and asks if she's sick or what's going on. But she just tells him she's heading to bed, and he's totally down for the plan, but then she suddenly grabs his shirt and yanks him close. He gets shoved onto the bed to lie right next to her. Having her stand this close is making the guy totally freak out. She screams for her dad, and right then, the boy finally realizes what's happening. She's actually still only 17, just like him. She's been struggling through the worst times all alone while her family is falling apart. Asuda turns to her, grabs her face, and promises he'll always be there for her. He's gonna stay right by her side through everything. The sun's finally up and a brand new day kicks off. Ifa asks if she can tag along, and since her fever is finally gone, he's totally cool with it. But even though her arm is still messed up and Asuda says she can't hunt, she just smiles and says she'll be his bodyguard instead. He just tells her not to overdo it, and right then, they spot the Ru's siblings way off in the distance. They were totally stunned while checking to see if they were actually okay. As they walk up, Asuda is already saying sorry for bugging them again. Rudo gets worried and asks Isekai'D if she should really be pushing herself, and Vina totally agrees since she literally just cut her arm. The huntress bows her head, saying sorry for yesterday and thanking the group for bringing her back. They ask for an escort to Gino's, and while she's still super worried about the whole mess, Ifra swears she can protect them even with her arm totally busted. Rudo's down to carry all the heavy stuff just for a bite of food, but Vina has to remind him that Asuda already hooked them up. Back in the city, Eiffel spots the shop from way off and asks the guy if he's actually the owner. He's totally down and asks Vina for a hand, but she takes one look at that meat and asks where he even got it. He says he couldn't make a single burger because of the rain that day. They had to ditch all their gear back in the rain, so Suda starts grinding the meat and tells the girl to mash it up while While they're on guard duty, Rudo says he's gonna chill since it's so dead, but Ifa asks if it's really true that nobody ever shows up. He explains that nobody just wanders into this alley by accident, and she immediately catches his drift. She asks if the smell of the food will get them caught, and Rudo tells her she's totally right. Out of nowhere, this guy bursts in screaming that the place is totally empty. Eiffel snaps into high alert and fires a quick shot to keep Asuda safe. Still shouting, the guy yells that he only sold the stuff because Cammy told him to, and he wants to know why some dude in a suit is touching his vegetables. Ifa asks who the guy is, and Rudo tells her he's just the owner of the vegetable shop. She just keeps on walking, totally ignoring him even as he calls out her name. She marches right up to him and asks if he's ever had a burger, telling him he can't talk smack until he's actually tried one. This starts to give them a bad feeling that things are about to go totally wrong. The guy calls her forest sister, and she immediately asks what he's after. But then he catches her totally off guard by saying he can finally thank her for saving his daughter. And just like that, they're straight up fused. She plays dumb and says she has no clue, so the guy reveals he actually brought his daughter along. He tries to bring the terror to shake her up, but the huntress still doesn't remember a thing and says she has no clue what they're even talking about. The little girl says a drunk man was bothering her. The girl leaves, and that's when it hits Ifa. It had to be someone from the Sun clan, because they're the only ones who drink in Genos. She admits that it actually happened and tells him he's officially thanked her enough. The guy heard these burgers are made with jib and meat, so he orders two so he and his daughter can finally give them a taste. The guy in the suit is totally confused and asks if that's actually allowed, but the man just wants to taste the dish his vegetables are being used in. The firekeeper tells Vina to set Tino right on top of the potion, and while she's busy doing that, the guy is watching everything go down and says he won't even get a taste of Tino this way. He gets curious about what's being cooked and notices the food doesn't look like meat at all. Seeing meat just sitting on top of Tino makes him realize things are getting way weirder. This guy's already got the burgers ready to go, but he's still standing there looking totally stunned. The guy asks if they're really worth 4 red copper coins. Tara's the first one to step up and give it a shot. This leaves her dad totally wondering what she's up to. She rushes straight over to Ife and says, "Because it tastes seriously amazing." The guy looks on, noticing his super shy daughter is suddenly talking her head off. The huntress cracks a small smile and says she's just glad she liked it. Not wanting to miss out, the guy wolfs down the meat and tells Asuda how crazy soft and tasty it is. And honestly, that whole situation with Jiba isn't even a problem. Out of curiosity asks if it would even matter if Asuri used a different kind of meat, or if he's strictly stuck using Jiba. Asuda claims his burger isn't even that bad, he just wants the whole world to know how awesome Jibami is. He's sticking to his plan of only selling that meat, but honestly, it's just not working out for him. But he can't exactly say that with Afa standing right there, so the man promises he'll take care of it and, "Let's check out some more veggies that would be a perfect match for Jiba." He's giving it everything he's got, just praying his daughter is watching him go all out. But the second he turns his back, the girl is. He's still staring right at Ifa, and honestly, this whole mess is totally your fault. Asuda says this is gonna be a huge help, so he heads off to grab them while Tyr waves a happy goodbye, but Afa can tell the guy actually looks pretty sad. They take one look at the vegetables and realize something is off. She tells her she's totally in love with her mom, and admits there are so many things she's just never felt before. Asura asks to try a few, and the guy lets him, but warns him to be careful because some of them have a really strong kick. But it's too late now because Asura's already chewing on a veggie that's making his eyes water like crazy. He thinks it's basically a radish with a scent and flavor that hits his nose super hard. The guy is hunting for Miami, while Viana tells the boy she smells something amazing. The veggie seller explains that if it smells this strong, you definitely shouldn't eat it raw, and asks the pseudo if they want to try something else instead. The pseudo's still got that veggie stuffed in his mouth, so the guy asks if he knows he can just spit it out already. But he says no way, gulps it down, and claims this might actually help him cook up a totally new dish. The kid is totally stuck thinking about the Mayan after his big attempt, but then this guy suddenly asks if his veggies are the absolute best. Luckily, he switches things up and asks Asuda how many Meamu he wants to get. Asuda picks out how many he wants, and the guy hits him with the price. Now that the deal is wrapped up, he says he's heading out to grab a few more. Asuda's staring at his ingredients, wondering what to do with the scraps, while I'm over here facing off against a vegetable shop owner who's actually a total pro. This gets the kid's attention, and Asuda figures that with some pro advice from a vegetable expert, he's about to cook up a legendary new menu. Vina asks what he's up to, and the boy explains that he's totally locked in, trying to figure out the perfect ingredients for his new menu. She was super hyped and asked if he was about to cook up something brand new on the spot. She's having a total blast and asks if she can jump in to help. Masuda agrees and tells her to go hunt down the ingredients. He explains that they're gonna prep the meat with fruit wine to make it smell absolutely amazing. Vina asks if that's what gives it flavor, but the boy just tells her it's all they've got for now. He also breaks down the whole deal with the mineral salt and pico. The leaf makes a sound that's just like the sizzle of grilled meat, all just to trick them into eating that meat. But check this out, here's a totally different plan. This curious creature starts checking out the meat. He asks if he's really gonna slice it up super thin. So the kid breaks it down and says it's way easier to eat this way, and the salt and pico really make the flavor pop. The veggie guy finally shows up right when one of the suitors calls him out to the spot. The guy asks the kid if he knows his name is Dora. He says thanks and then brings back even more mamo. He quickly chops up the veggies and tells Vina to get that fire started. The firekeeper splashes in some fruit wine and tosses in a few slices. Mayamu lets it cook for a bit before pouring in another splash of the drink. Dora grins and says the food smells amazing, and even Vina is starting to notice it. Right after that, Asuna tosses in those thin slices of Cuba meat. That scent was still hanging heavy in the air all around them. He catches a whiff of the food and thinks it's the kind of smell that makes your stomach growl instantly. Jiba is officially in the mix and shaking things up in Miami. It's tearing through every corner of the city. Rudo's still keeping watch, but he's already whining about being hungry, and Ifuku is totally shocked he can even pull that off in such a tiny little stall. Chef Asuda tells Vina to whip up a super strong roast using those tino leaves. She wanted to make sure she wasn't messing up, so she asked the guy if it looked okay. He gives her the go-ahead, picturing this point with tino leaves as the perfect snack to munch on while walking. He takes that Jiba meat and slaps it right on top of the pointon. Then he just pours the sauce right over the top to finish it off. He wraps it tight around the meat, explaining that he's gotta do it so the filling doesn't just fall out. And that's exactly how the Jiba with Miami was served up. Vina's totally hyped because it looks so good, and Dora says since he's the one who sold the veggies, he's gotta be the first customer. This guy tries to play it off like he was only testing her. The guy won't back down and keeps insisting he'll pay just to give it a shot. He's got no other choice, so he hands it over and grabs his 2 red copper coins. Dora takes a bite and instantly tastes that spicy Mayamu heat mixed with the perfectly salted meat. As he's chowing down, a group of shady guys just stands there watching his every move. Asuda asks if they're actually down for it. You've got a bunch of burgers, but then one of them actually starts pointing. A massive pot overflowing with sliced up Jiba. The putted man asks Jiba to team up with Mayamu for just one round. Asuna tells Vina to get another one ready to go. Doris says he'll be back later to grab one for Tara, so he tells them to make sure they save some. The kid totally thinks he's trying to bolt, but Asuna just hands over the meal while Vina grabs the cash. The kid just watches the guy scarf down his food, and then he turns to whisper to the squad, and now the firekeeper is dying to know what's up. He flashes a quick hand sign and orders 6 Mayamu and 7 Jima burgers. Isuda is totally blown away because Doris just made back all the money they lost from the rainy day. Super hyped, the kid joins forces with Vina to start making way more. Eiffel just watches the whole thing with a massive grin on his face. Rudo's over there whining because he's totally starving. The moment everything is set, he makes his move. He hands it right over to those hooded guys. He let out a massive sigh of relief now that every single piece of meat was finally sold. Next, he starts prepping whatever's left for Dora, Tara, and Kamen. He's got no clue when they're actually coming back. Rudo offers to go ask, telling Ifa to stay on guard since he can handle that nasty smell no problem. He starts gearing up to head out. The guy trying to marry her yells out to him, and he promises that as soon as he gets back, he's gonna hook him up with a Jiba burger. He's looking way more hyped now, and he's rocking a whole suit of fire. She thinks his bright smile is honestly the most beautiful thing ever. Vino apologizes for her brother, but the boy brushes it off, saying he's actually the one being helped out. Asuda gives them all the credit for being able to sell meat this way. He's actually super thankful to the forest folk and even the people from Geno's. Vima totally agrees and tells him she's super thankful for his help too. The kid is totally caught off guard, but she just casually mentions she's heading out to cut some tino leaves. So he's just strolling through the city. Ruda walks past a group of people and overhears them hyping up a nearby shop. This gets the kid's attention fast, and now he's listening closely to whatever they're planning for Asuda's shop. She's 100% sure about it, and it's definitely coming from right inside that shop. Heads up, Rudo's jumping right into the chase. Suda's busy cooking and says the burger is almost done, just missing the Miami, right when Vina warns him that a customer is heading their way. He's just standing there with his arms crossed, staring them down. She's definitely starting to look pretty annoyed. And it totally weirds them out. Yamrudo thinks they're about to wreck Asuda's shop, so he's already got his hand on his sword. Out of nowhere, she starts talking and says she F. He followed that scent right to the source and found out the forest people had actually opened up a shop. The guy right behind her asks if she's Jibami, which totally ticks her off, and she snaps that she's just going to the vegetable store. But then one of the dudes speaks up and says they're actually from F. One line out, the input is far away and that he can't trust her senses. He says it's his fault and the other agrees, asking Yumi. They keep shoving her forward to make her try it, but she's not having it because she thinks Jibamit is totally gross. Asuna is watching this go down, and she's totally not feeling it, even if the forest people are known for being super sketchy. He tells her if she's gonna hate on it just for its looks, she should at least give one a try first. She's totally stunned by how gutsy he's being, and one of the guys shouts that even the shopkeeper thinks the exact same thing. Asura knows he messed up, but he didn't open his shop just to start trouble with everyone. Then she asks him for a taste of whatever he's whipping up. The kid tells me he's gonna get my amu all ready to go. Yumi's face drops as she stares in total horror. And one of the guys straight up calls her unlucky. He's literally wearing a suit made of hands over that pile of raw meat. He tells him it's gonna cost 2 red bronze coins. She hands over the cash, looking totally annoyed that she even has to pay. He's watching her closely, thinking that since the smell lured her in, she should just go ahead and take a bite. Yumi thinks it over for a second and then tries to meet up. He's literally building a suit out of pure happiness. One of them asks for her take, and she looks even more ticked off than before. She orders them to get lost and then asks a serious question. She's asking if anyone wants her meat because she's definitely not eating it. Suda's been watching everything, and this really gets on his nerves. They actually turn it down just to go meet up and follow that super angry lady. Next up, we've got Wiener and Eiffel. I look over at the kid, feeling totally worried for him. Rudo and Dora finally show back up with the guy, and he's already asking all about the Mayamo. The kid flashes another big smile and hands over the food. Everything was for him and his daughter, Tara. Amanda notices Asuda acting super weird and asks if he's okay, since he sounded totally unsure of himself when he mentioned the Mayamo. He looks bummed out at first, but his whole vibe flips instantly. The boy says he's not in a bad mood, he's just super hyped to figure out how to cook it. Eiffel watches from her guard post, looking super proud of how everything is going. Dora gets curious and asks if he wants to make that Miami dish even better, even though he thinks it already tastes amazing. Asuda thanks him and says he's still got a little bit left in the tank. Plus, he's gotta close up the shop too. Suddenly, we see someone way off in the distance, booking it as fast as they can. He says it was a total close call, and he barely made it in time. But Asuda tells them it's too late, they're already closed. Kemiwa swears he finally made it on time, and after saying hi to Dora, he asks if he really pulled it off. The guy says he smells her and asks the suit if she's a new menu item, and the boy confirms it. They tell him everything is already packed up, leaving Cameo totally bummed out, but Dora actually hands over the one he was saving for his daughter, Tara. He eyes the new dish and says it's all good, just as long as they didn't mess with the kiba meat too much. Camus tells them he's heading out, but he'll be back the very next day, and asks him to say a prayer for his soul. The guy asks if he's really gonna finish that whole thing by himself. The guy says no way and starts rambling about how Lido can't handle stinky food, even when he's trying to mask the smell. The guy just waves goodbye and bails, leaving the kid standing there totally confused. Vina pops in asking if something's wrong, but Asuda plays it cool and tells her to pack up while Doro heads off to bring his daughter some food. While they're walking, Asuna gives the whole squad a huge shout-out for all their hard work. Vina is the one who catches Afa acting super weird and tells her she looks totally wiped out. The huntress just plays it off, saying she totally got distracted. But she's thinking to herself that there's no way she can actually fall asleep. That food smelled so good he realized he was totally starving. She can't tell the rest of the group, and she's just wondering if Suede is actually gonna sell the stuff he stayed up all night making. They got the shop all set up and were ready to roll. Rudo eyes the box they just brought in and asks what the heck is inside. Asuda opens it up and reveals some Jiba meat that's been soaking in Miami sauce all night long. Before anyone can say a word, Dora zooms in super hyped and Asuna just wants to know if that's the vegetable she ordered. The kid actually says he's sorry for making him go that far. Dora introduces Tara, who loved the food so much she wants to see exactly how Mayumu makes that jiba. The girl's eyes totally light up as her dad starts talking. We're all super hyped about this, but Yumi is just watching from the sidelines, totally confused about why. The Geno's crowd was having a total blast hanging out at a barbarian food stall. He's totally ticked off and sick of everyone pointing fingers at him. He's totally using them as leverage while they're feeling the heat. She just strolls right past Dora like it's nothing. She complains about being put up for sale again, but the boy just smiles and tells her he's really glad she showed up. Yumi tries to snap back and stand her ground, but Tara steps in to defend her, telling her she really needs to take a closer look at what's happening. He's totally keeping his mouth shut and won't admit a single thing. She's sticking around just because that little girl asked her to stay. He's just asking her to sit back and watch the whole fight go down. He splashes a bit of fruit wine right over it. Check out those Jiba slices just sitting there in the pot. Things are getting weird because Harris says that just yesterday there were. Even though those thin slices are totally gone this time, she can still catch that delicious smell wafting right out of the pot. The woman is totally stunned when she catches the scent, realizing that's the exact smell pulling everyone in. Isekai'D shows off the bowl and explains he let the meat soak in Mayamu sauce all night long. Terror finally realizes that's exactly why it smells so amazing. Then he pours in the rest of the sauce and stirs it up until both parts are totally mixed. Now all those flavors are perfectly mixed and hitting just right. He's totally hyped to see that cooked meat all wrapped up and ready to go. While the lady is busy scrubbing them clean, Dora asks if he and Tara can have one too. Just as Yumi creeps in closer, Asura asks if she wants one, but that just gets on her nerves. She looks him right in the eye and asks why she should even bother. He just wants her to see how crazy that flavor is. Now she's totally lost on what Asura is actually trying to do. She thinks it's gonna be just like last time, so she goes ahead and asks for one. He hands it over to her, along with those two current customers. She's actually using a total fake watch to pull this off. She finishes up, and it finally clicks why she wasn't feeling it at first. He asks her how it went, and then you finally get to meet the whole squad. She just shrugs and says it wasn't nearly as bad as she thought it'd be. He pulls out 2 coins to pay for it, but Asuda shuts them down, saying he just wanted to give it a shot. She says that yesterday she acted like eating it was a total insult, but now she's actually saying sorry. He's pretty sure he just heard something exactly like that. Ignoring all that drama, the woman just turns around and walks away. Asuda keeps it respectful and gives her a big thank you. He's super proud that she's officially the first customer he's ever had. He totally won her over without even knowing who she was. Vina saw every single thing go down. She asks what's so funny and says she totally didn't expect that woman to show her face again. But then Tara shocks everyone by saying it was actually delicious and so flavorful she could totally just eat the meat by itself. Her dad reminds her that the TNO they sold was actually top tier too. Asuda watches them and realizes that even the city locals have their own unique vibes. Finally, Kamua strolls in with a huge smile and says he's just there for the food. The kid tries to thank him for yesterday, but the guy has absolutely no clue what he's talking about. Asuda realizes everyone usually just hypes up his cooking, but now he's finally getting the real truth. Dorodal pops up to say the food is actually fire, making him even more hyped to dig in. With the shop finally packed with staff and customers, they're busier than they've ever been. There are times when Asuda honestly feels like he's just dreaming. As she takes the money, Vina warns him that those hooded guys from Shumu are closing in fast. Kamua, Dora, and Terra all say their goodbyes as they head their separate ways. The second they walk up, Asuda asks what they want to eat, but one of the guys just speaks up and says he's only there to talk. I hung back and kept a close eye on them from a distance. He gets this super weird feeling that something is way different now. And just like that, her suit finally shows up and tells them they seriously need to talk. Ifa's super worried and asks what just went down. Feeling pretty awkward, the kid explains exactly what the Shingu people are asking for. She pulled a knife on the guy who was trying to marry her. This totally freaks her out, so she demands to know what happened, but he swears there wasn't even an attack. Even though one of those guys was literally holding a knife. But it was really just a gift to show off their cooking gear. Next, we head over to the shop run by the shoeman. He shows off these silver pots and totally catches the kid off guard. Check out all the wild stuff they're selling. Asuda really wishes Rudo had tagged along, but he's stuck back home keeping an eye on the shop. That's when Ifa chimed in and asked what they were all talking about. She wonders why she was even brought along, so the boy starts explaining the whole situation. It's like the chumarol knife was actually helping him slice through veggies way better. She looks him right in the eye and asks what he's been trying to tell her. Asuda hangs his head and says he wants to spend their hard-earned cash on some new utensils. She basically just tells him to go for it. Asuda is totally shocked because he thought he needed the family head's permission, but Ayafa just tells him that since he earned the cash, he can do whatever he wants with it. The kid gets super hyped and bolts over to check out the utensils, and she's just so relieved that's all he was actually talking about. He was about to show him way more. I figured I had plenty of time to kill, so I just hung back for a bit. Afa thinks these decorations are totally boring, but Vina is obsessed with how beautiful the necklace is. The huntress won't even touch the jewelry, and Vina thinks it's a total. They all head off on their own, but a little while later, Essie shows back up with a bag stuffed to the brim, and I'm just totally stunned. She says he bought way too much, but the boy just tells her they're just massive. He's feeling pretty awkward right now. The kid says you bought her a gift, and I totally found out. Frey speaks up and says that's totally against the forest people's traditions. So you basically just ask her to at least check it out. He reaches into his pocket and whips out a necklace. The girl just shrugs and says if that's all it is, she's totally cool with it. It's totally fine as long as it doesn't mess with the hunt. The suitor admits he's not a hunter and doesn't have a trophy to give, so he hands over a lucky charm instead. I'm Fez Eyes and I'm totally glowing. She actually takes the necklace and says she'll keep it, making him the happiest guy ever. Her shoulder is totally busted, so she says she can't even put it on. The firekeeper steps in to help her out and asks if she's actually into it. She takes a look and tells him he's totally right. Right as they're walking past, Vina's eyes totally light up when she spots that gorgeous necklace. Vina is totally loving this, and the guy is just A. He asks her if she wants to grab something too. She tells him that once she finally gets back, she's gonna go on a massive shopping spree and grab tons of stuff. Right when they make it back to the shop, Rudolph already crushed all 10 burgers, and now Asuda's totally regretting making that many. The chef ties on his headband and shouts that they're going all out before the sun goes down. Now they're getting everything ready to sell even more. But wait, Suda's bed is completely empty. She heads outside and finds the boy just sitting there, staring up at the sky. She's super worried and asks him if he just can't sleep. Asuda says that's not even the issue. He just thinks the whole thing is a total waste, leaving her super confused. He says all they ever cared about was getting rich. But they were totally caught off guard by what happened next. Every single person they met and all the crazy stuff that went down. Stephen S. finally in a great mood, saying he wants every day to be just like this, right as Ifa sits down and leans in. She leans on him and tells him she's totally hyped for everything happening tomorrow. And things just kept moving along like they always do. Asuda says they're closing up shop and it's time to take that sign down. He gives Rudo a quick thanks for the backup, but then he tells the kid to lug all the gear while he heads off to pay the fee. The rookie hunter looks totally heartbroken, so Asuda tells him to quit it with the crying face. He's got iFile right there with him, and he's ready to roll. Since they've finally got all the cash they need, all they gotta do is sit down and talk it out. Next up, the two of them are about to run straight into Cameo. The guy takes the cash for the 10-day rental and asks if the pseudo-boyfriend has a question for him. The kid nods and tells them he's actually got a favor to ask. Camus says it really just depends on what he's asking for. The kid asks to keep the shop for a bit longer, and the guy wonders if it's because he finally realized he can make bank selling give me. Asuda says that's part of it, but he's also just dying to see a brand new world. He kicks things off by telling us this right at the start. All he really wanted was to just mind his own business and run his shop. But after meeting some new faces, he realized he actually wanted everyone to get a taste of his cooking. Ben realized he was the one causing all the trouble, so he told the guy to keep using the shop and promised he'd handle the owner himself. This totally catches Asuda and the whole crew off guard. This dude says he's totally got the whole situation under control. I watched everyone ask him if things were awesome, and even though he agreed, he just couldn't bring himself to actually feel happy. She says she's honestly just so hyped that they get to keep stuffing their faces with his awesome food. Asuda meets up with Rudo, and Rudo's already asking if they seriously have to go back to work yet. Vina pops in and says her brother was just being a total hardhead. When the stall finally got back, his eyes were straight up glowing red. This really gets on his nerves, and he just asks if he seriously has to head back to Genus again. He drops that answer and just walks away like it's nothing. The stall finally reopens, and everyone is absolutely stoked. Yumi shows up and admits she totally missed the shot yesterday, and honestly, she's completely stunned. Then Asuna admits she totally came here on purpose just to check the place out. This lady's super happy vibe was actually insane. They're heading out to grab some Miami stew with Chiba Me. And just like that, things finally went back to being chill. Way off in the distance, a few people stop to check out the stall, realizing that's exactly where that Jiba smell is coming from. Asuda's right in the middle of cooking when he realizes the entire ground is actually shaking. Vina nods, saying it's definitely creeping closer. Suddenly, this guy comes sprinting up and demands every last bit of the Jiba meat. Asuda is totally shocked and asks if he's really the one being talked to. The guy flashes a heavy bag of coins to show he's loaded. Asuda turns to talk to Vina, but she looks like she's totally hating it. Just by looking at their stance, you can tell they've got the skills. They react the exact same way, and that's when it clicks for Asuda. This is Midas' son. He's the same guy who tried to jump Ifa once, but she totally wrecked him. Your crew definitely saw the guy, but they can't do anything since he's a paying customer. He's only cooking because he wants the cash. Asuda watches the guy scarfing down his food, which is the kind of thing that usually makes him super happy. But this time it's straight up turning into a real fight. He told Vina to spread thin strips of Tino across a massive area. If Miter heads home happy, then nobody has to worry about him starting a fight. But she straight up tells him that Tino is history. Plus, they're totally out of Cuba meat anyway. A suit made of hands is just hovering over that Miami stew with extra Jiba meat. The second he grabs it, Mita swallows the food and the kid whole. They're finally gonna get exactly what they've been waiting for. The guy keeps asking for more, but Asuda tells him they're totally sold out and hands back his change. Mita totally loses it and starts bawling like a huge baby, literally begging for more. Suddenly, this guy shows up and asks the shop owners for help because he's been swamped for weeks and can't handle all the requests. Imaru straight up tells them there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. This big guy yells that there's someone here with absolutely no shame. They're totally playing their brother and spreading a bunch of lies. She even calls up the Ru's siblings to get them in on the action. She's getting major credit for standing up to her family, but Vina steps in to keep Runo from doing anything crazy. Yamaru just smirks and tells them they're honestly the worst. Stop crying already, Mana says he's starving and those creepy eyes are staring, and she warns that if he shows up at home looking like that, he's totally gonna get in massive trouble. Asuda's getting super annoyed and finally asks. The crazy thing is they don't just talk trash to everyone, they're actually trying to hurt their own family. Yamira gets all sarcastic and tells him his attitude is honestly super annoying. And he goes to ask the firekeeper in the Ru, but they can't pull that same trick on the son. She whipped around to face the leader of the Fat Clan. She asks her what she thinks, warning her that she won't get a third shot at this. She tries to get under his skin, asking if he's really gonna say no. Asura asks what the catch is since they can't agree yet, wondering if it's really as simple as just making dinner. Yamira gives him a smirk and calls him sharp, explaining that all the big family heads are about to meet up at the Ru clan. Then she drops the news that it's for 70 people, but she's only charging them for 40 jibas. He's totally stressing over how to get that much meat and if his family can handle it alone, while the woman keeps poking at him, saying he looks like he's dying too. If he's still confused, he can just hit up the Ru family for the answers. Domna meets with the clan and tells them that their big moment is finally here. We're about to find out exactly what's going on with Yamaru. Get everything ready for the next big meeting with all the family bosses. Gazarin says the meeting is right around the corner, and the boy is already stressing that things are about to go sideways. The guy says the bosses meeting up is no big deal, but he's actually worried the Sun family might link up with Asuda. Then it hits him that during the shop's test run, he never saw any of them and just figured the Geno crowd didn't like forest folk. Asuda's starting to think that all these crazy events are actually linked together. She flashes a super sweet smile while asking if she can go ahead. Grandma Juba walks right into the meeting, saying it's been way too long since she last saw the Falkland. They ask the old lady if she's all alone, but she says Ramad is already right there with her. Juba says she heard the Sun family is stirring up some serious trouble for them in the city. Rudo raises his hand and calls out that they've been a massive pain for him too. Donda says the Sun is super annoying, but he's staying out of the city drama and just helping out on his own. Juba admits that logic sounds solid, but he's not finished yet. She's talking about a contract that was signed 80 years ago. The old lady warns them that taking anything from the forest is strictly forbidden. The Juba hunt finally kicked off, and since all the trading in the city stopped, some families didn't even make it. She's super sad because it honestly kills her to see the city folk making the forest people suffer. He was eyeing her down, and the second he did, everything changed. She claims she's not the only one being messed with and reveals the crazy reason why. Since the trade was finally over, some brand new faces started showing up. The kid straight up said he was fuming at you. Yeah, Meru, but there's literally nothing there. He's done with the past and decides right then that he's going to be the one to finally take down the Sun. Eiffel warns everyone that this is totally gonna mess up the Ru. So don't go starting fights and just let everyone deal with stuff their own way. Leader Donda offers his guys to haul the ingredients and some women to help him out. The day of the big family gathering finally arrived. The big meeting with all the leaders is finally here. Rudo shouts that they're finally here. He asks if wearing a suit is actually okay. He's like, yeah, once they show up, they're totally on the scene. Narrated by Tae-sun. Wait, one more check. Read by Tae-sun. Narrated by Tae-sun. The second he snaps back to reality, he starts wandering through the place. The whole vibe was just straight up dark and depressing. They drop the ingredients right where they need to be, and then he heads inside the cabin, hunting for the stove. Once he gets inside, he spots a group of women. And man, they looked super annoyed. He steps up to introduce himself to the whole group. He tries to ask for a favor, but they totally blow him off like he's invisible. Ifa put a hand on his shoulder and told him to snap out of it and keep his cool. Vina and Rena show up too, totally having his back. He tied on his chef's scarf and got straight to work. And with that, the prep work is finally finished. If another girl tries to snatch that ladle, I'm totally gonna lose it. Rena tries to yell that it's stuck, but she's already too late. And the boiling hot soup splashes all over her. The woman collapses in pain and Rena screams for someone to help, but everyone else just leaves her hanging. Bino jumps in to help and says they should get the girl to the river to wash her off. Asuda yells out, but they just shout that they're coming for him and bail with the injured girl. He followed their lead and knew exactly what to do. The kitchen is doing great, but there's one thing that's really stressing us out. It's literally just food spilled all over the ground. So now they've got to find a way to match that exact same amount. Since he had nothing better to do, the kid just went for it. He says he's going to pay for every single ingredient they can get their hands on. The women look totally lost and have no clue what's going on. This totally catches Asuda off guard, since the kitchen is literally their job. He was starting to get pretty annoyed. He's hyped to finally find the ingredients, but right then, things take a turn. And of course, this thing pops up at the absolute worst moment. Now the kid is seriously stressing that he might. He wants to just walk right in and pig out on whatever he's craving. But he sees this as his big shot. Maid is super hyped and asks for that awesome food he had at the stall before. Then the suitist bails on them because he's gotta go find some ingredients. He put on a total act and asked. He ordered the guy to lead him straight to the pantry. Meta grabs the boy and tells him he's not supposed to be here, but since he's hanging with the cook, he'll let it slide. Asuna finally relaxes because Meta doesn't think it's weird at all. The second they lay eyes on that warehouse, Midpoints and Asuda are totally hyped to see that this place is way more massive than the fake setup they expected. He's finally starting to believe he can actually get back everything he lost in that accident. But the second they try to pull it open, they find out it's locked, which totally ticks Meter off, but Usura tells him to stop before he ends up breaking it. He says it shouldn't be locked since they use it every day, and the boy gets curious, asking if last night's dinner was actually normal. But Maida says he only ever grabs his food in the city. It really makes you question what's actually impossible. He's probably the only one with enough cash to actually pull that off. The guy's worried you can't cook without opening it, but Asuna is totally locked in on making dinner. Just as they're trying to shove the door open, Tyson suddenly pops up and asks what they're even doing at the warehouse. Asuda tries to explain that something totally wild happened and he lost all the ingredients so. The guy starts yelling that he's a thief, but the kid swears he'll pay for it, only for the man to get super rude and tell him to stop acting like a total crook. He says he should have just asked a family member and ignored Midas, but a frustrated Asuda snaps back that he already tried the cooks and they totally blanked him. Tai says they just didn't trust him one bit. Rudo pops out of nowhere and asks what he's up to, leaving the firekeeper totally freaked out that things are about to go south. Taivan says that since the Ru are already there, the sun doesn't even need to give them ingredients anymore. The guy starts yelling at Mida, telling him he's totally banned from being there. Asuda thanks Rudo, but then asks him why he even showed up. The young hunter says he spotted Vina and Riene and came over to see if something was going down. Asuda says he's just missing some ingredients this time around. Rugo heads to the city to grab everything he needs and tells him to hurry it up. The second the guy tries to speak, he tells him to slow down so he doesn't forget a single detail. Now that he's got the whole list, the kid bolts out of there as fast as he can. By every single thing that happens as time goes on. The second he heads out, the girls are already back. The whole squad jumped in to help out. They kept right on grinding to get everything ready for the big family meetup. All the big family bosses are finally meeting up. Vina tells him they're heading back and asks if he's staying, but he's stuck waiting for the Sun Clan to pay up since they never give out cash in advance. Riene suggests they just leave the payment with IFAS and says she'll definitely be at the meeting. Now he's starting to think they just want to get the guy all by himself. The girls tell him he better watch his back and stay safe. Asuda gets a bad feeling and realizes there's something seriously wrong with this warehouse. It bolts straight toward the spot where the meeting is going down. He figured he'd hang back and eavesdrop for a second. They pull apart the gooey cheese as they eat, and one of them shouts that this food is so good they could totally sell it in the city. Usura thinks it feels exactly like they're just grabbing a meal back in the city. Suddenly, something catches his eye, and he sneaks another peek. Another guy argues that small clans like theirs just can't pull that off, since the Sun Clan has all the cash, and the little guys are way too busy hunting Jibas. Ifo nods along, saying that not every family is lucky enough to have what they need. And that's exactly why the Sun needs to start sharing all that wealth. They just start cracking up, saying it's a total joke coming from a family that sells Jiba in the city. Then another guy snaps that if she's gonna keep complaining, she should just volunteer to be the meat herself. Asuda realizes that no matter what world he's in, the rich and the poor are always gonna be at each other's throats. Either way, he's feeling like everything is going perfectly and just strolls off. He starts thinking about Mida and feels totally guilty for ditching him, so he decides to head back. He heads out to find him and apologize for all the trouble he caused. He's looking around when he suddenly runs straight into a mirror. He asks him what he's even doing, just wandering around the houses. He says he won't get his money until the meeting's over, so she just offers to pay him herself. She points to a house and tells him to wait right there while she goes to grab the cash. He used the excuse that it's way too sketchy to just hand over cash right there in the middle of the street. He locks in immediately, remembering exactly what Rihanna said about isolating the enemy. They were gonna use him as a hostage to blackmail Ifa or scare him into doing what they wanted. As he heads inside, he figures she's gonna be okay because Donda would never let anything happen to her. So when the meeting finally wrapped up, he wasn't going anywhere because Zoro's son refused to take any chances. Degas did it on purpose and straight up bumped into them, right into Ifa's busted shoulder. She slammed onto the ground, clutching herself in total pain. He flashes a smile, says he knows she's still injured, and then he suddenly grabs her. He grips her shoulder hard and says he's taking her to get that pain fixed. He slams Ife against the wall and tells him he's down to just forget everything that went down. But only if she actually says yes to the wedding. Right then, we're looking at the door of the house Asuda is hiding in. The door swings open and someone walks in, already complaining about the vibe. Everything goes pitch black, but the kid says he's totally cool with it. With nothing but a flickering candle to see by, Myro shows up with absolutely no clothes on and asks if he's ready for the wedding ceremony. She asks if his heart is ready for this, and Amir wonders if he's so shook that he's totally lost his voice. He's totally stunned, wondering if the guy was always this massive. Asuda hides his face behind his shirt and just says he's totally shocked. She's totally confused, but the boy tells her she's already tried this exact same move before. Amir is totally lost on what he means, but seeing his head covered, she finally realizes he's just trying to hide. He asks if she's naked, and if looking at her means he has to marry her or literally lose his eyes. The kid says he already knows what's up without even looking. The woman thinks the whole thing is hilarious and starts cackling. She calls him a total idiot, but admits she's still into him anyway. With his head still covered, Asuda fumbles around for the exit, not even knowing if she's still lurking in the house. The door swings open, he reaches out and feels someone there, and now he's totally panicking about where his hand actually landed. Maeda asks what he's up to, and since Asuda is stoked to see him, he yanks the shirt right off his head. He says he's sorry for totally breaking his promise. He told us to just drop it, but since Yamira might still be lurking nearby, Asuda begs him to stick close. Nearby, Tay asks if she pulled it off, but she tells him his plan was a total fail. This is seriously starting to get on his nerves. She asks if she should let anyone near the warehouse, but Yamri shuts her down with a hard no. Asuda starts getting a bad vibe from the warehouse and figures the meeting is already over since T is the one calling the shots. Right then, Ifed sees the perfect opening and goes straight for Diga-san, who gets dropped to the ground with just one single kick. Donda suddenly shows up and says he was looking for her because he thought her son was causing trouble, but it looks like he was totally wrong. She wasn't even worried, figuring Diga only let his guard down because he saw him, which gave her the perfect opening to attack. So Donna's sure the sons are definitely cooking up a secret plan for the meeting. Now she's starting to get seriously worried about Suda. They finally track down the boy and Maeda, the exact girl they've been searching for. Asuda tells her he's just glad she's okay, while she's still totally shaken up. He wants to know why the kid is hanging with Maeda, so the boy explains that she actually helped him get the ingredients even after they got kicked out. Asuda still doesn't trust them and reveals they've been holding members of. The other clans are actually steering clear of the warehouse, which is super weird and totally unlike them. Ifa also thinks it's super sketchy that Nadium the cook was even allowed inside. Donda decides to head over and check out the son's warehouse. Neda warns him they're gonna be super mad, but he literally does not care. Out of nowhere, Zoro's son pops up, complaining that they're causing drama on another family's turf, and No ID calls everyone a total fool, even Maeda. Donna asks why he's even messing with other clan leaders over a warehouse. The Ru leader drops the signal to get things moving. The other three don't wait around and just take off running. Dama jumps right in the way, stopping Zero from chasing them down. This guy orders him to get out of the way, but the Ru leader tells him that he just wants to know what the heck is going on. Afa asks if the door was locked and tells the kid to watch his tongue, while the boy Mara's carrying confirms it was totally locked with no key in sight. This girl is looking at everything happening and thinking it's all just one big mystery. While they're on their way, they run straight into Dan Rutum. He says he's only there because he's hungry and can't sleep, but seeing them carry a suitor is super weird, so he asks if the kid is literally about to be cooked. Usura says they're hitting the warehouse, and since he's a slowpoke, he's getting a ride, which gets Dan so hyped to join that Ifa has to tell him to shut up. Even the Rutum chief is totally blown away by how giant this warehouse is. He looks over at Asuda and asks if he can cook up some sun meat, and Asuda's totally down, but says they gotta crack it open first. Out of nowhere, Tai's son shows up and warns them to stay away from the warehouse, even screaming at Maeda, who's shaking like crazy while clinging to Asuda. Seeing how terrified he is, the kid feels totally crushed that he can't do anything more to help. They're literally right on the edge of uncovering the big secret. Dan gets super annoyed, tells the guy to shut his mouth, and says he's the one who's gonna eat him instead. Usura sees his shot and tells Maeda to stay back while he tries to open the door on his own. With a big smile, the kid says he's gotta feed everyone who wants his cooking, and that includes him too. She tells Dan to get lost, but the Rutum leader just dares her to try and make him. Ifa tries to jump in and help, but Danda shows up out of nowhere and says he already handled Zura's son. He shows off the guy lying there out cold and claims he just randomly blacked out. Maeda and Asuda are giving it everything they've got, but that door just won't budge. But out of nowhere, someone told them to knock it off. Even Tag is totally freaked out by Zatsu's son, and Dan's just like, wait, aren't you supposed to be in bed? This creepy old guy looks super mad and warns them they better not open that door. Dom thinks this guy is a total weirdo and tells a student to just hurry up and open the door. Maida is shaking with fear and keeps saying she's sorry. Dan steps up to take on the old man, while Asuda stretches out and gets ready to go all out, even though Maida is worried things are about to get way too dangerous. But the kid doesn't care and says he's doing it no matter what. He knows his body is way too fragile, but he's actually considering throwing himself at the door just to protect the kid. The warehouse is totally empty, but Asu thinks the box sitting inside looks super sketchy. He asked Maida to give him a hand so he could finally snag that box. While Dan and Donda are busy scrapping with the old Zatsu, Isekai'D steps in to make sure the suit is still good to go. Asuna pops the lid open and reveals that it turns out they were keeping the mountain's secret treasures hidden away. Ifa checks the place out and realizes there's a bar on the inside keeping the door shut. She looks inside the box and finds it's totally empty, but then she spots a secret tunnel hidden away just for the members. The old guy starts screaming at them for messing with the forbidden blessing and blowing all their cash instead of hunting Jiba. Totally crushed, he shouts that they played dirty and broke the rules. Dan and Donda lock eyes, but then things take a crazy turn. But his dad shouts that the whole family is officially done for. Just then, Yamri shows up and thanks the crew for finally putting an end to everything. A ton of time has passed since everything went down. Things got really messy with the Sun family, so Asuda and I had a serious talk with Jiba Ru, and she says she finally understands everything that happened. They showed up because the lady demanded to know every single detail about what went down. Even though Donda already warned her, the lady still asks how her son is doing, and things get totally wild. Suda starts picturing himself as that loud old guy who was just screaming. Ifa asks if they were actually brought here because she's digging for some other secret. Juba asks her if she even noticed what was going on. She brought up the contract because she figured the girl was actually just worried about the Sun family falling apart. She confirms it's true and says she and Zatsu talked about that deal ages ago. Let's throw it back a few years to when a younger Jiba was just staring at a tree. He asks why they can't just grab all this fruit, but then Zatsu shows up and says their contract only lets them hunt those dangerous Jibas. She was totally freaked out about his wound, but the boy didn't even flinch. He backs away and admits he's still a total rookie at this whole hunting thing. The boy is super confident and tells them they need to level up to hunt Gibas and protect the forest people's future. The girl just flashes a smile and tells him he's totally right. Back in the present, we're finally catching up with Grandma Jubis. She backs up his story and says that they were dying to know what he was up to right now. She's thinking about the son he was trying so hard to keep safe. They just waited for their sentence and did exactly what they were told. To find out what this guy is really all about. Yamari was the one trying to expose all the messed up things he'd done. Then there's Maida, the innocent girl who never said a word and is now being sent off to live with a whole new family. He's ditching everything he's ever known. Asuda looks down and says the Zatsu he saw might not even be smart enough to understand. Grandma Jiba just thanks him for the closure. Then she struggles to stand up for some fresh air while Ifa rushes over to help her stay steady. Asuda jumps in to help, sprinting over to the door to swing it open. Ife helps her walk outside, and as she and Asuda stare up at the gorgeous sky, they see that right in the middle of it. She looks at Zatsu and sees a total reflection of who she was back in the day. Ifo is the very first one to finally wake up. And right on their heels, Asuda jumps into the mix. She throws both her arms out for a massive stretch. The second she hears her name, she turns back and gives him a huge good morning. He finally notices something going on. He switches things up and asks if her arm is finally feeling better. She says yeah, the pain is totally gone now. She throws on her fur coat and says she's finally heading out to do her job as a hunter. And this totally breaks Asuda's heart. He'd just gotten way too used to having her by his side. Ifri admits she's been bugging him for way too long, and now she's finally stepping up her game. He's holding down the city while she guards the forest, and together they're going to protect their home. She also lets them know that the big bosses are heading straight for the city. Check out this report on the Sun Clan, because those guys were always hanging out at that place. And just like that, they're officially back in action. Asuda hands over 3 Jiba burgers and starts apologizing, leaving the hunter totally confused about what's even happening. The suit explains it's just paying him back for that time he helped it out. Rudo grabs it and tells Asuda he actually owes him 20, but he'll count this as the first payment for now. So while Tug is hanging onto the firekeeper's shirt, he looked down and snatched Hera up. The girl explains that she was actually sent here on a secret mission. Then her dad says he's ready to chow down on some cooked mayonmu with Jiba. She slaps 4 coins down on the table and orders a plate for herself too. While the boy is busy cooking, Vina notices something weird and hands a piece of chopped tino to a super confused Asuda, telling him to look at the shoe people heading right for the shop. The guy is shaking with fear after her order, but she just casually thanks him. She darts right through the group of guys, making the boy think she's just acting shy. The shoe people placed a massive order for 11 cooked Miamis and 6 Jima burgers. He figures Tara was probably just caught off guard by the pseudo-realizer, so the kid says he's gonna go get them ready. Then one of the guys signals him to come over and check in to see how all that gear you bought is working out. The kid grins and starts talking about how great the knife is for slicing, but Vina cuts him off right away, who reaches out and yanks on his shirt. She points right at the necklace hanging around his neck, which totally left him blushing. Vina points out that Ifa is literally always wearing her new necklace. Asuna is way too scared to say anything, so the girl steps up and tells Shumuraru that Ifo is the one wearing the blue stone necklace. They do this every single day, and you just know they're totally loving it. While he's busy cooking, he notices Vina is actually paying attention and realizes he's gotta step his game up. He shouldn't be the one getting rescued, he needs to be the one saving everyone else. He's got the orders in hand and is totally ready to go. He shows the shoe to the guys, and Vina says it feels like the devil is right there. Things are finally back to normal, and Asuda actually says yes, even though they haven't really gone out much before. Suddenly, Leto comes charging in on Asuda. He's totally caught off guard and asks if Camus sent him there to deliver a message. Still gasping for air, the kid nods and says his master needs to talk to him about something big. Asuda thinks they're asking about the stall, so he tells them they've almost hit their goal for the day. And Rudo was over there, basically inhaling half the burgers by himself. Vina tells them to pack everything up, saying she and her brother will handle the stall while Asuna heads out with Leto. He's tearing through the streets at full speed. They finally make it to the inn, and now they've gotta hunt down Cameo, looking like he's definitely not happy about this. He's totally surrounded by a massive pile of papers all over the table. The guy says things just got super annoying, and he's trying to figure out what his next move should be. Even after all that prep, everything is totally ruined, and he faceplants onto his desk since he's only got a few days left. Just as his guide disappears, Asuda starts getting really curious about what that thing actually was. Kamua asks him if he seriously forgot what his job is supposed to be. As he gets stared down, the guy starts overthinking everything until they both just end up looking at each other totally confused. Getting super annoyed, the guy reminds them that he already told them back in the forest he was just investigating for his escort job. This sounds super familiar to Azuda, like he's definitely heard about it somewhere before. He asks Cameo what his big plan was, and the guy suddenly realizes he's completely forgotten why he even showed up. Guy explains that they're actually just protecting the merchants coming from the city of Genomes in the Eastern Kingdom. Kamua points out that nobody's used this forest path in forever. The Lord of Genos is finally stepping up to fix things because the Goobas are wrecking the merchants, especially near that super dangerous spot called the Collapse. The bridge was a total ghost town, and the path was completely deserted. Kamua says he finally got the forest people to help him out, but right when they were ready to move, he found out the Sun family had totally vanished. The guy then asks him if he knows anything about the clan that was supposed to be his guides. Asuda's convinced the Suns totally trashed their deal, and that's exactly why those 3 clan leaders showed up to report it. He swears he's got nothing to do with this mess, but since he's totally out of time, Kamua begs for just one person from the forest, saying he'll take literally anyone he can find. Asuda says he's got no clue about the Suns, but he's totally down to help out however he can. But they were totally running on empty. Even this dude is totally clueless. Asuda reaches down and grabs one of the papers off the table. He asks if this is the contract with the Suns, and the guy confirms it was made just for them. To fix the problem, Asuna offers to go talk to someone else. There's a family out there who might actually be able to help them out. Out of nowhere, the guy asks if they're ready to start right this second. Because honestly, trying to visit a family usually takes a ton of back and forth. Talk about a shocker, the kid announces he's heading back into the forest with a group from the Ru. And demand he spills every single detail. The guy breaks down every little detail of the contract, and when they're finished, Leto walks the suit to the door and thanks him for the help. The firekeeper just grins and tells him not to sweat it, promising he'll be back soon to give an update. Leto watches him walk away, looking pretty worried about what's going on. Gazarin finally tracks down the kid, and some guy in a suit actually apologizes to him. The guy says he's totally cool with it, even though the kid admits he only showed up because the Ru clan sent him. But when he talks to Dona, the chief tells him this is a job for the Rudim or the Saudi, not the Ru. Asuda says he's hyped to start working together, and Gajarin is totally on the same page. First off, they're jumping straight into the plan they made with the Sun family. After sizing up the whole situation, Gajarin says the move is they need to cut straight through the forest from west to east, while dodging the bandits lurking near the north and south borders. Plus, they're gonna have a huge problem with the Jibas, who are moving in just to keep feasting on the mountain's blessings. The date and the route aren't the real problem. He's actually stressing over what's in the cargo and how many guards are protecting it. Usura says he's got no clue, and that guy just told him the Lord of Genos was the one who ordered it. That's probably why every little detail is so important. Gadrin checks the plan again and realizes Western trade is the real jackpot for Genos, so he's heading off to talk to the Saudi clan about it. He flashed a big smile and thanked them for having his back. Then we've got the main guy, representing Rudum and Saad. They're acting as the guides, while Cameo goes undercover as a guard for Genis. He brings his partner Zashuma along for the ride. Asuda watches with a proud grin, thinking back to how this all started out of nowhere. This was all possible because Gadrin's crew was totally on top of their game. This plan is totally gonna work. These guys pile into the carts, lugging their heavy sacks along. And just like that, a pseudo-stand is standing right there next to Leto. He watches them closely as they finally head out of the forest. The firekeeper decides it's time to step up and look after his shop. But right then, someone totally catches his eye. This kid feels like he totally knows this person and immediately recognizes them. The guy stays chill and explains he's actually Murano Masu, the one who lets him use the stall. With Kamui out of the picture, he tracks down the kid and tells him he's gotta start running his own stall. The guy jumps on the chance to mention an empty stall and asks the kid if he thinks it'd be a great idea to open up even more of them. Asuna thinks it's way too messy right now because the shop gets crazy when the Shimas visit, and they'd need a ton more customers to actually pull off 2 stalls. He tells them he's stressed because those ingredients cost a literal fortune. The guy tells you to head straight for the mansion up ahead, promising you'll find something totally wild inside. A shot rings out right in front of the entrance building. Suda catches a scent that takes him right back to his old life in Japan. Suddenly, the smell of soy sauce hits him, and he bolts inside to find where it's coming from. Suddenly, some guy shouts over to him. He tells him if he's gonna stay, he's basically just chilling in the lobby. Asuda says he's not sticking around for free, he's only there as a customer. He says he heard they've got some seriously wild ingredients. The guy asks if he's talking about tossed sauce, and he snatches up a jar filled with the liquid. Asuda's jaw drops, but he's not even sure if that's actually soy sauce, so you ask to try a little bit yourself. The guy says he's down, but since it's from the Southern Kingdom, it's gonna be super pricey. Asuna snags the tall sauce and heads out, seriously hyped to finally give it a taste. The shopkeeper thinks the kid is acting super sketchy and realizes he might actually be the one pushing the jabami. The siblings are holding down the fort and running the shop. Rudo shouts that Asuda is finally back from meeting the merchants, while Vina tries to play it cool and act like everything is totally fine. The firekeeper finally rolls in, says sorry for being late, and reveals he just bought a crazy new ingredient. He says he's getting everything ready, and Vina is right there with him. He's super curious and asks what's actually inside that jar. He pops the lid to show off the toss sauce, straight up admitting he has no idea what it actually is. V9 looks pretty annoyed as he explains that this stuff is actually a super expensive fermented drink made from togrin. It really makes you wonder if there's a good side to this. There's a huge chance it's actually just soy sauce. So we're giving it a taste test just to be totally sure. He hits the floor, totally blown away by the taste, and 100% sure it's soy sauce. It was a taste he seriously thought was gone forever. Rudo gets super worried when he sees Asud crying, but Vienna thinks it's just because she called the item a rare find. Asuda shakes it off and tells them they've got it all wrong. Then he announces he's gonna whip up a brand new dish using that toss sauce. The siblings don't even question him and just go along with whatever he says. The firekeeper says he'll keep things moving like normal while he's busy planning what to do with that sauce, and the boy starts thinking back on what just went down. He was totally swamped with drama when he first showed up, but now that he's finally free, this taste of home makes him feel way more connected to Japan. Suddenly, he pictures Afa promising that they're finally going to live together as a family. Vienna calls out to check on him because he looks like he's totally spaced out. He's locked in, trying to cook up a new recipe that'll make his shop blow up. She tells him that she and Mayamu finally finished cooking the Jiba and she's gonna use the pot. Then he says he's switching things up and using a totally different kind of meat. A little while later, his brand new creation is finally finished and ready to go. A juicy cube of cooked Jiba meat. Masuda thinks he should give it a shot, and now Vina and Ruto are totally down to try it too. So the whole squad jumps in to try it together. Masuda is hyped about his creation and tells the group he's selling it for double the price of normal Juba meat, and everyone totally agrees with the plan. The kid says the meat cube isn't ready just yet, but he's gonna finish it up tomorrow. Rudo Nemesis is way more hyped than usual, and Vina says she's totally fired up too. As they're walking, Asuda asks if getting more supplies means the Ru family will give them more backup, and while Rudo thinks he's rushing things, Vina says Renan might actually help out. But honestly, she probably wouldn't even care. Right at the table where his master usually sits. Now that the shop is way bigger, the three of them are busy getting everything ready for a new day of sales. Vina asks Asud if he's actually gonna start selling the new product. He notices a bunch of people are already there, ready to buy everything up. The kid is totally hyped and tells Dora and Tara he's gonna open it up right this second. The dad and his daughter are finally cool with everything. He's dying to be the very first one to taste that new food. The student cracks open the box where he stashed that cooked Jiba meat. It was just soaking in a deep pool of thick sauce and fruit wine. Everyone's jaw drops when they see those cubes of meat. Venus says they look way more delicious than they did yesterday. He jams 2 chunks of meat onto a stick so they don't fall off. Dora instantly asks for 2 for his puzzle when Asuda sets them on a leaf instead of wrapping them, but the boy explains he's just trying to save the flavor and promises to make him a. Asuna gets a sudden idea and slaps another leaf right on. He pulls the top together to make a tent and gets ready. To finally get everything ready to go. Dora is totally loving her Jiba meat skewer, saying it tastes way too good to be just some random street food. At first, the kid's whole plan was actually, he dishes the meal right into a wooden bowl. They're grabbing a snack on the move, but things don't stay chill for long. Using that leaf actually worked out way better. He was totally hyped about what he just made. He told the guy to give it a shot. Dora wastes no time and downs the first cube. So while they're busy picking out their suits, it looks super nervous and totally unsure of itself. The guy grins and says it's so good he can't even believe it's the same gibam he's used to eating. And he's seriously hoping Tara has a blast with it too. This poor kid is stuck doing everything that heartless girl says. He's holding onto a piece of the skewer. Asura asks her if she's seriously not gonna eat anything. She just tells him she was totally spaced out, thinking about how pretty and shiny it looked. The boy tells her it'll taste way better if she eats it while it's still hot. But in the time it took her to grab the girl. Wait, look at her hands, they're totally soaking wet. And right when it goes to see what's up, out of nowhere, Doris jumps right in front of me. He looks over at his daughter and tells her she better start eating way faster. He asked the firekeeper what went down, and he points out that she took way too long, making the sauce soak right through the leaf, and Usra tells her it's a fail because street food is supposed to be easy and delicious. He thinks toss sauce is gonna be a total hit since it's basically soy sauce, but the kid is feeling down and says skewers just don't fit the street food vibe. Dora's down for it and hands over the cash. The guy asks for something that lasts longer so he can eat it at a restaurant, and while the kid remembers buying his sauce from one, he admits there's no way he could ever run a whole restaurant himself. That's when Dora tells him they need to get moving. They head straight to a restaurant without wasting a single second. Whoa, you actually caught me off guard with that one. He heads right back into the shop where he picked up that sauce. Dora says if these scooters sell big, the boy needs to level up the business while he handles all the carpentry himself. Right then, the kid finally realizes that this was his master plan from the very start. He walks up to the restaurant owner with his head down to talk, thinking there's no way he'd ever do something like this back in Japan. Since he's finally out of Japan, he's feeling way more confident as he sets the box on the counter and explains he made a dish with the sauce, asking if the guy will take it. He's starting to sweat because he knows he's being way too reckless right now. But they totally blew past what anyone thought was possible. This guy says he's gonna give it a taste test to see if it's actually good enough to serve. This totally shocks the suitor who thought the owner was a nice guy for serving his own rivals at that tiny food stall. The guy gets ready, piles his plate with meat, and starts chowing down. He was literally starting to tear up. He's actually loving it and says it tastes amazing, leaving that pseudo absolutely shook. He's standing right by that tall source, and he's looking totally ready. He spent years just trying to finally make it happen. He's gotta figure out a way to actually cook with this thing. And right then, Asuda realizes there's just no way he can do it. This guy says he started cooking just to try and whip up the ultimate meal. It'd be awesome if he actually pulls this off, but Asui totally misreads the vibe and starts apologizing for messing things up. But the guy actually thanks him for giving him hope that there's still a F. He's making sure his legendary sauce is totally set for the future. He steps right up and introduces himself with a handshake. He's wrapping up the contract just so he can buy way more of those skewers. He rushes back to his stall and starts telling Vina all about the crazy stuff that just went down. He's thinking that over while he snags a little something extra from outside the shop. He totally struck out on getting a new dish for the menu, and now he's feeling just as bummed as Nonus. The kid is already weighing every single option for what happens next. Go ahead and toss us aside if you think you can actually cook up a brand new recipe. Suddenly, a customer walks in and orders a plate of cooked meamu with jiba meat. As he preps the dish, Asuda thinks he finally killed that gross jiba stink by using meamu. And you definitely remember them totally devouring all that grilled meat. Meals that were cooked nice and slow to make them taste incredible. And right then, a crazy idea pops into his head. This student is actually making the delivery while throwing down in a massive fight. He's running through the new move he's dying to test out. Once the sun goes down, dinner is served, and I'm ready to go. Check out my face when everything starts going totally crazy. He tells them these are actually just some wild new experiments from his food stall. As he tastes it, his face shows a whole new side of him. Trying the new food just made her crave even more poitin. Asuda figures that's a pretty solid lead right there. The shop opens up, and Vina is totally shocked that the kid got everything ready way earlier than usual. He says it's all because of the tsukiyaki, a brand new product that looks exactly like Jibo. The second they hear that weird word, the siblings start acting totally strange. Asuda tells Vina that he just gave the meat a quick cook after seasoning it with some pico leaves. He pulled the same move with the fruit wine and that tall sauce. Lido shows up and says he's catching a really faint scent. The kid asks for one, and he's totally ready. Tutor realizes he's got all he needs since Kamua isn't around to stop him. The firekeeper realizes Lido has always been way too mature, acting more like a loyal guard dog for his master. Asuda hands over the food and mentions he tried to remake a recipe that tastes just like his. They headed back to their home turf, leaving Lido totally clueless. The kid reaches down and snatches up his fruit. He says it's shaped exactly like Mamo. Asuda thinks that's the big reason why it was way easier to tell all those flavors apart. Now he tells the kid to give it a shot. The leader shouts that the food is finally ready. It's actually got this surprisingly soft flavor to it. Suddenly, this guy shows up out of nowhere and yells that something totally awful just went down. Kamu is finally back, but he's totally drenched in some mysterious red liquid. The second it starts getting curious about that box, and he bolts away to track down his master. Vina says she totally saw this mess coming from a mile away. Asuna's getting super worried, wondering if something bad actually happened to Kamu. Vina shouts out his name, and right then, he says the place is basically a ghost town with hardly any customers around. He totally gets what she's saying and asks if it's cool for him to go check it out. Vina's totally down for it, warning him to chill out and not take things way too far. A massive crowd is gathering around, and right in the middle is a Sudov. It doesn't take long before he spots the guy hanging out with Lido. He lets out a huge breath, totally relieved to see the guy isn't actually hurt that bad. Usura asks the guy what the heck happened to get him completely covered in that red liquid. He says it's not his, which totally freaks the kid out, until Camus reveals it actually belongs to the very last member of the Sun family. Asuda says the guy was actually supposed to be locked up in Genos for breaking their deal. That's how it was supposed to go down, but don't move, we'll be right back. Let's rewind to the moment right before the merchants headed out. Camus is slumped over a table, whining about why the Sun family had to fall apart at the worst possible moment. Leto shows up and points out that he looks like he's in a seriously bad mood. This guy admits he set up a decoy squad to catch the Sun clan being shady, and he totally knew they were gonna get jumped. Ladov gives him a total side-eye, and Kamu quickly apologizes for bringing up those bad memories. But the guy says it's totally on him for not forgetting about it yet. That's when his master gets a totally wild idea. He's getting sent straight to the shop as fast as possible. Camus talks about the new crew Asuno is introducing to replace the Suns, since now he can finally move the merchants without any drama. Leto tells him he's praying he stays safe out there on the road. The guy heads over to link up with Gajarin. The two of them introduce themselves and get things off to a perfect start. His partner admits he never expected they'd actually have to deal with each other. It's those forest people back for more. Then Cameo tells them they're finally good to head out. It's all a lie, those merchants are total fakes. They're trying to seize the Sun's power just to ambush the final caravan. He's been doing things exactly like this for a seriously long time now. He got word that the old clan leader is showing up, and it'd be perfect if the guys who raided the merchants were there too, making him wonder if Leto can finally move on. They run right into the Sun family and start making some crazy demands. Now they're finally paying the price for what they did 10 years ago. Cameo whips out his sword and starts clashing with one of the Suns. He gets totally wrecked and tossed right off the cliff. Cameo stays hidden and keeps a sharp eye on the action, completely covered in a pool of his own blood. Kamu just spilled the beans that Zatsu actually used. These fruits lure the Gibas in close, just so they can jump them. He realizes they're pulling the exact same move they used to attack 10 years ago. But this time they're finally gonna stand their ground. He swings his sword and completely wipes out those Jibas. They're all rushing in to take him out. He finally wraps up his story and tells them he was made of that red liquid, but he also came from something totally different. He locks his eyes right on Leto. Suda realizes he knew the plan all along, and that's exactly why he's been acting so bummed out. He closes up the shop and heads to the office with his new recipe, thinking it's the perfect way to distract them. That voice totally stops them in their tracks. Inome's old Zatsu is finally waking back up. Then he finally realizes exactly who that voice belongs to. His son is right there, desperately calling out for Tae. Suddenly, all those old memories start flooding back to him. He heard Zatsu's voice asking if the goods were actually hidden in a different spot. Tae says that for a group like theirs, this was the absolute best they could pull off. Little Lita is hiding in the woods, watching them both while she's absolutely terrified. They were totally messing with him just a second ago. Everyone was having a blast and couldn't stop cracking up. He finally snaps out of it, waking up from the nightmare of that day. Later on, he's sprinting in a suit while that thing tries to chase him down. Old Zatsu calls out for Tae to get over there, and they totally got Cameo mixed up. He says he's gotta bring back it's all about protecting the Sun family's honor. He finally realizes the old man is actually a total beast. Goodman asks him straight up if he's actually a citizen of Stone City. His eyes go wide the second he realizes it's actually true. Out of nowhere, Zatsu just totally snaps and goes ballistic. He calls them out for forgetting their debt to the forest people, claiming they're just trapping the villagers so they don't have to do the dirty work of hunting Jibas themselves. Asuda's doing everything he can to keep Leto safe. Master Kamua looks super intimidating after hearing those words. Zatsu claims all that cash belongs to them since he was the one pulling the strings for those crooked citizens. He was finally on the right track, but then he just totally checked out and stopped caring about anything. This quick cameo reveals the shocking truth that Tai-sun is actually dead. The old guy is totally confused and just flat out refuses to believe it. Camus says his son was totally gone, leaving nothing behind but a pool of blood and a dark obsession. He's out in the open, but he's making sure to stay totally hidden under that cloak. These creepy shadow hands snatch Zetsu up, and he starts screaming for his son. Kamua stares at his hand with a totally blank face and tells the guy it's time to accept his judgment. The old man is left lying in the dirt as the guard moves in to snatch him up. He orders him to get on his feet while wrapping him up tight in rope. He's completely out of moves and just accepts his fate. Suda and young Leto just stand there watching as fate's destiny finally goes down. He reaches out and places his hand right on his student's head. He looks Leto right in the eye and tells him it's finally game over. While the boy's eyes just light up with pure wonder. Leto sees his family one last time in his mind, all of them smiling like they're finally free and saying goodbye. They disappear into the distance, leaving the little kid there sobbing his heart out. He's finally watching his people get the justice they've been waiting for. Kamua just tells everyone he's heading back to work. Asuda yells out to grab their attention. The master looks him right in the eye and asks what he's really there for. The boy says if he's down, they should totally try out the new recipe he cooked up while he was away from the city. The guy just gives a chill smile and says he's totally down. Camille shows up, and Asuda asks where the boy is since he's standing there all alone. The guy explains that Leto probably just crashed from being totally exhausted, and the firekeeper says he saw this coming, and when a confused Kamua asks what he means, his suit explains that Leto was just relieved because he'd been acting so worried. The Kamua just smiles and agrees that the kid was actually super worried about his work. Asuda says this was about way more than just the work. Turns out the kid was just waiting for him to finally come back. The guy was totally stressed out until he finally caught a break, and Kemi just smiled, telling him that everything was going to be okay now. Now that the drama-s finally settled, a guy steps up and orders 2 plates of the new food. He grabs one for himself and one for Leto, promising they'll eat together the second he gets back. Asuda thanks him for always coming back to his little shop just to help everyone else out. You never really know what someone is feeling deep down, but if Nether wants to change their relationship, maybe it's totally fine to just let things be. Even while he's fast asleep, the kid keeps calling out for his master. Asuda's totally locked in, grilling up a whole line of kiba meat. Ifa pops up and says it's been way too long since he started whispering to himself while cooking. He says sorry and asks if she just got curious, and yeah, she totally was. She totally did, asking if he's nervous about the food and offering to do a taste test herself. Asuda admits she was totally right about cooking and smiling, and now she's actually stoked to give it a try. The guy says he doesn't even need a test, totally killing her hype. He tells them he just needs a little more time to figure things out. He asks if she's bummed out, but she just says she gets it, and even when he checks if she's okay, she just gives him the exact same answer. The sun's finally up, and they're already getting the shop ready to start making some serious cash. Vina turns to the sub and asks if he's actually gonna take the boiled egg. He sends those cubes straight to the 3 main pavilions and double-checks that everything is good to go. Naughty's made it happen, so now the 3 main pavilions are actually serving cuds at their first-floor restaurants. But here's the catch, Asuda needs a solid 2 or 3 hours just to get them ready. He manages to pull the meal together, but it's eating up his time and he's stressing about only having 1 dish, so for now, he just needs to focus on lighting the fire. He's crouching down to check on it when a voice he totally recognizes calls out. Word of a new recipe gets out, and Asuna knows exactly who it is before she even looks up. The Shiva guys are back, and their leader is already asking for the price. The kid welcomes them inside and says he's gonna whip up a meal for everyone. He uses them as a distraction to step up and take charge. He hits up Shumerl to see if he knows any restaurants or shops that sell some awesome food. As soon as they were 100% sure that. He's asking around because he really wants to know more about that voice. These spots whip up legendary meals, and they don't even need fancy ingredients to do it. Everything was just the same as always. The guys huddle up to talk, making her seriously regret even asking them in the first place. The guy says he'll spill the secrets about the new dishes, but only after they finish their meal. The boy is super hyped and gives them a massive thank you for that. Rudo says peace out to Asuda, since he and Vino are gonna be the ones holding down the fort at the shop. Shumerl walks along with the kid, who's totally hyped up about every little thing he sees. He realizes this is the first time he's actually just exploring the city, and as they head into a building, Asuda feels a wave of happiness seeing how all the houses look exactly. So the guy actually led him straight to where he needed to go. They're just chilling at a restaurant when he suddenly gets the feeling they've been spotted. Everything on the menu is ready, and now Schumer is about to make the call. He calls out for someone, and it totally catches the boy by surprise. Look how fast they showed up. A guy walks through the door asking if it's a customer, and he definitely doesn't look like the friendly type. He asks if they're just merchants, but he's definitely looking a little freaked out. Asuda finally speaks up and tells them they're just regular customers. The guy asks if they're hungry and tells them to grab a seat. Asuda jumps in fast, claiming they're only there to hunt down some rare ingredients for the restaurant. The guy is totally lost and says he has no clue what would even be rare enough for him. Show me that box. He actually brought a suit. He says he made it with ta sauce, which is actually super rare for him. Realizing just how rare he is, the guy starts showing off some seriously crazy stuff. He shows Tina and Chido in Miami, and honestly, their vibe is as weird as a salty pickle mixed with fruit juice. The other item is actually made out of Jama's hardened milk. Turns out these items aren't just basic supplies, they're actually processed food. Miss Suna takes one look and realizes they're actually kimchi and cheese. He stares at the red item, wondering why he's holding the Tino mix meant for Chido. The guy explains that jayamimi has a super intense flavor, so you've gotta eat it with chita fruit. Suddenly, the kid realizes that chidu is actually just a seasoning, exactly like pico leaves. Asuda starts wondering what chido actually tastes like. Is he bitter, spicy, or does he have that kimchi kick? Then he asks the guy if he's down to sell it for that much. But the seller's got a pair where one of them is totally different. As they walk down the street, the boy gave Shumerl a massive thanks with a huge grin on his face. The guy tells them to skip the thanks, he's just really hoping for the best. He's super hyped for the brand new dish he's cooking up. They say their goodbyes while Suda promises to give it everything he's got. Then he swings by the restaurant to drop off the cooked jibekis. The nice man flashes a grin and says sales are through the roof, so he's ready to buy even more. That makes the kid's eyes sparkle with pure joy. He says peace out to the guy and heads straight back to work. Tuna stares down at his brand new ingredient. They were super hyped to cook up a brand new recipe. Those jerk siblings dump a suit at his front door, and he's totally caught off guard. He gives a quick thanks and heads out. He makes sure she spots him, so she knows he's finally back. She was just sitting there on the floor when he spoke up again. He asked her if she was feeling sick or just totally out of it. The kid is super hyped about his new ingredients, but Ifat is totally not feeling it. Asuda tells her tonight's dinner is going to be a total experiment and asks if she's down, but her reaction actually leaves him feeling super nervous. He takes one look at her, and everything finally clicks. Something went down that totally crushed her spirit. Asuda drops the fresh bag of ingredients on the table and dives right back into the dough. He walks right up to the girl and starts asking her. He kept wondering what she'd think if he actually cooked up some burgers. She hit that perfect note and instantly jumped into action. She gets super hyped and says this is the perfect chance for a taste test, asking him one more time if she can really test him out. And Asuda is totally down for it. Asuda rips open a new ingredient and decides to kick things off with the one that looks just like cheese. The pan is getting red hot, and the real struggle is finally about to begin. He just chucks it right in. It melts right down until it looks like a total ghost. Ifa gets totally freaked out and asks what it is, but even he has no idea. He pulls that gooey stuff apart, and she's dying to know just how far it can actually stretch. Asuda steps up to the challenge, but when he gives it one more tug, the whole thing snaps, leaving Ifa. He lets out a huge shout, but then he sounds totally bummed when it just snaps. He picks up the broken shard, takes a quick taste, and realizes it's actually cheese with a texture just like camembert. Ifa's totally out of patience and tells him she has no clue what he's yapping about, she just wants to give it a shot already. Right as he's prepping the meat, this guy in a suit suddenly shows up. He slaps on the sauce and spreads it all over the place. They're wandering all over the place, and Ife is so shocked her mouth starts watering. She catches that same scent from last time, and Asuda calls it the toss-up. Now that she's feeling like a total pro in the kitchen, she says the absolute best thing to add is some poitin. Asuda's getting desperate now, so he just slaps a slice of cheese right on top. She asks why he's putting that stretchy thing on it, but she's looking totally confused. With everything ready, Asuda serves the food on a wooden plate while Ife watches, admitting the smell is making her super hungry. He finally shows off his brand new recipe and calls it the teriyaki cheeseburger. She grabs the plate, totally ready to chow down. Just aim your stares right at it. He speaks up and asks if they're actually doing okay. Suddenly, Suda remembers getting burned by the super hot juice from her last burger. She's dying to take a bite, but she knows she's gotta hold back. Looking pretty worried, he tells her she better eat up while it's still hot. She uses a spoon to slice right through the meat, and just like that, he's having a total blast, just like a kid obsessed with watching cheese stretch. Asuna thinks it's hilarious and warns her she better not drop it. She takes that first bite, and in just a few seconds, her whole face completely changes. Her eyes are literally watering because that meat is way too hot. She can't even speak, so she desperately signals Asuda for help, but he's totally clueless at first. Eiffel just shakes her head, trying to show them exactly what's going on. The guy totally thinks the food tastes like garbage. Asuda stares as the steam starts rolling right toward him. It looked away from the steaming meat and locked its eyes right on her. She struggles to gulp down the meat and then immediately reaches for more. She keeps going and going until she finishes every last bit. Asura then asks her what she thinks about the new food. She's beaming with joy and tells him the food tastes amazing. It's way better than anything she's ever tasted before. Ifa tells him he should be super proud of what he just created. Asuda stares down at the empty wooden plate she just finished. They handed it over with big smiles, thanking her for those awesome words. Right before heading out, he lets her know that Go is busy whipping up some deadly poisons for her. But then she hits him up and asks if he's got a second to talk. He knows things are getting real now, so he finally rips off his headband. She plops down on the ground and suddenly realizes it's already been 2 whole months. He's totally lost, so she explains that's actually how much time has passed since the very first day they met. He sits down right next to her with a grin, finally realizing just how long it's been since he first showed up. But Eiffel isn't looking nearly as hyped as him, and then she finally cheers up and says it's time to celebrate with some real meat burgers, and Asuda is so hyped that he ties his headband back on, ready to get back to cooking. Everything is good to go for whenever Asuda finally shows up. He sets the food down on the ground and lights a fire to brighten up the room. As he's digging in, he realizes that cheeseburger hits way harder while it's still steaming hot. Seeing her so hyped while she eats, he decides to just let her have the rest. They're totally ready for any kind of person that shows up. Asuda flashes a big grin as he serves up the next order. The stall just added 3 epic new dishes to the menu. The meat is a total hit, but they're seriously short-staffed and can't keep up with the rush. While the Miami was sizzling away, Asuda ordered a massive pile of area to be chopped up. Another long shift finally wraps up, and that's when things get wild. Everyone is totally wiped out and feeling pretty awkward when a sudden. They asked Rudo if he was cool with them, stopping to grab some stuff on the way back. This rookie hunter looks totally bored and honestly couldn't care less. He asks if they shouldn't be looking for more backup right now. He agrees, but he's got zero clue who's actually right for the job. But Venus is looking super hyped because she's got a crazy idea for this. They're being led straight into the Ru clan's village. The kid is left standing there, totally clueless about what just happened. She tells the guy to just hold on for a second, and shouts to the whole village that they're finally back. The boy is super curious and wants to figure out exactly what she's plotting. Rana walks out of one of the houses, and she looks totally annoyed. He looks at Vina and tells her that's totally unfair. Asuda starts freaking out the second he sees her. Riene asks her sister if she's really this hyped just because they got to eat in the city. She acts all mysterious and just teases them by saying it's a secret. Asuda watches them and realizes Vina is just messing with her sister, but he's trying to figure out what her real plan is. Rena announces she's going to the city to help, making it clear she's officially part of the team. This was Vina's twisted plan to get new workers all along, and she's so hyped it's working that she shouts over to Asuba to ask if. Rana heard that, and now he's dying to know why this kid is in the village and why he's trying to stay hidden. He doesn't even try to defend himself, he just straight up says he's got no excuse. Vienna tells Asuda that her big idea is standing right there, and she's pointing straight at her sister. Riina is totally lost and asks her what she's even talking about. Her big sister tells her that Asuda's stall is totally blowing up, so he's actually thinking about hiring someone to help out. Vina just smirks and says they're counting on her help now, and that's the exact moment Rihanna realizes she totally fell for her sister's trap. Rihanna thinks it over and asks if they're actually sure they want her help, but then she suddenly remembers she's still a servant and can't just slack off, so it's time to get back to business. Suda drops to his knees and admits he knows he's asking for way too much. She's totally freaked out and asks if he's doing some kind of weird ritual. He says it's a special ritual from his homeland for when you're dead serious about asking for a favor. Vina tries to help out by saying they've got some serious guts. Reina thinks about it for a second and says she'll try to get the okay to tag along. The kid is super hyped and thankful, just like Vina. Venus thinks they should take him to the family first, but Rudo is totally not into it and just starts walking away while Renee asks where he's even going. Another day on the job is kicking off right now with the rookie finally heard the whole story about what went down. Samuel finally figures out exactly why this girl is there. Rudo's totally on guard, keeping his eyes peeled for every single move. He's totally whining because even though Reina joined the team, he's still the one stuck carrying all the heavy gear. His sister hears him and spins around with a big smile, saying she's just there to help out with the stall. Whatever they're planning next is looking like a total disaster. And we even get some hype cameos from the Nebuses. Asuda tries to fix the vibe by telling Rana to chill, while giving Rudo even more gear to test out. Camilla asks if they're struggling with the weight and says they're gonna need a Todosu if they can't handle it. Usura asks what's gotten into him, and just like that, it happens all over again. He says they're gonna need a Tatasu if they want to carry all that heavy stuff. He says he heard it the first time, but he's still asking what that weirdly named thing even is. Kamua points out that these are the exact same animals that were pulling the cart last time. He asks if the burger is the tasty part, but he's actually thinking about eating the thighs, wings, gizzards, and liver. He uses that distraction to make his move. Kamua reveals that one of the Tiktasu actually slipped away and bolted into the forest. Asu thinks it's way too convenient that he's just now mentioning this. The guy explains that he really tried to get the animal back, but he just couldn't find it anywhere. He says if someone finds it, there's literally no way to prove it's actually his. He sees the way the kid is looking at him and thinks he's totally winning him over. A guy in a suit told him to hurry up and order because the line was starting to get huge. He ends up ordering 3 Jiba burgers and 2 Tsukiyaki Jiba. As the kid drops off the order, Camille starts wishing for a wild Todosu all over again. He grabs his food and tells the kid he better not even try it. Don't forget to stay on your toes and be super careful with the Tatasu. Rihanna overhears them and asks if the lady wants them to grab a Tiktasu, but Asuda and Vina are both completely lost. But they just shake it off and get right back to serving the customers. As they were heading back, it started happening all over again. Rudo starts whining about carrying all the heavy gear, but Vina tells him to just zip it. Asuda thinks it over and says they're actually for real. They've seriously gotta find a way to fix this. Suddenly, Kamio's voice starts blasting inside his head, screaming about the Tuptasu over and over. Suddenly, something totally catches Rudo's eye. He tosses everything aside to grab his sword and tells everyone to stay back. These 3 are totally lost and honestly, they're being super rude. He's just staring straight at that creepy dark cloud. It's closing in super fast, but check this out. Seriously, riding around on a giant bird is just straight up disrespectful. He asks her why she's even riding that beast. Then the girl speaks up and says she's the one who finally caught it. She asks the girl where she found it, and she says it was just sitting out in the forest. This takes him right back to when Cameo said those exact same words. The older sisters are all smiles as they watch Remy ride a wild Tatasu. Vina checks and doesn't see a seal anywhere, so Rana realizes this thing is straight up wild. But then all that hype just totally vanishes. Kamu was back on the grind selling his stuff like usual, but then he hears the crazy news about Tasu getting captured. But the sisters, yeah, they look totally miserable. Asuda tells the guy to check and see if this is the animal he lost. He stuffs his face and says he'll go check it out. Deep in the woods, Kamua stares straight at the body. He points to the bird and asks Lita what his take is on it. Camus admits that the kid is way more of an expert when it comes to animals. He's taking a super close look at the bird. Lito says he's totally fine and shows everyone he doesn't have a single scratch. It acts like it's totally used to being around humans. Asuda asks if that's actually a good thing, leaving the boy totally clueless. After figuring everything out, he finally steps up to lead the squad. This beast is crazy strong, so it's gonna be a super easy payday. Kamua asks if this beast is actually strong enough to haul all their heavy gear. Lito takes a closer look and gives a quick command, making the bird sit right down as he brags about how well trained it is. Han asks Suede if he knows how to ride that thing to Kyosu, and he says Remy was the one actually using it. Rudo acted totally bored, saying his sister wasn't even really riding, she was just clinging on for dear life. Lino offers to show Asuna how to ride and starts climbing up. He lunges onto the animal and screams out in total desperation. Young Leo grabs the Tatasu and tells him to stay calm since he's got him, but Asuda panics because without a saddle, it feels like he's falling off a crashing bike. The kid is freaking out and just grabs onto those feathers for dear life. Back on the ground, Lito says he'll get the hang of it in no time. Just then, Fred shows up and asks him what the heck he's even doing there. She suddenly spots the animal lurking down in the sub-level. He's finally getting the hang of how to ride this thing. The girl gets totally hyped and begs to give it a shot herself. Asura asks if she's ever ridden one of these before, and she tells him it's her first time. She stares at the bird, wondering what its deal is. Lido steps up to help, but then a huge surprise hits out of nowhere. With the whole squad backing her up, Ifa finally gives the command for the bird to sit down. The second it happens, she hops right onto the Tuptasu and starts giving it orders. He stands up and the bird follows his every move, leaving a dark shadow in its wake. Still totally stunned, she hops on the beast and heads out on a wild ride. Even Lido is totally blown away and asks if it's actually true. Is this seriously her very first time? Asuda proudly says yes, watching her with a huge grin on his face. She's heading right back to save her. She kicked off this whole adventure just because of what those guys were saying about her. She hops off the Tuptasu and gives it a pet, and the creature is totally vibing with her. Kamua notices the bird is totally vibing with her and asks if she wants to keep the Tatasu for good. Asuda asks her if she's actually ready for the big job of looking after the bird. She gives the Tuptasu a happy pet and tells them they're all gonna live together with the Juraru now. The boy tells him she's already picked out a name for it. And if it asks if that's a problem, then let it. Hanging out right here on Todd's channel.